I was about to say man crush on your like the two of you, like your relationship and then your singular feed. So just your own creative expression
Mhm.
through Instagram and then hers on Instagram and Substack. It just every single post um provides me with like a morsel of just a reminder to be better and a reminder that, you know, we're living in a concrete jungle somewhat and there's just certain
Yeah.
American ways of living that don't necessarily fit with how we've evolved over the thousands and thousands of years that we've been on this planet. So yeah, you're both very good with your words. You're very well spoken. So
Thank you.
I wanted to get you on and um yeah, it's so cool that you're able to fit this in your schedule as you are preparing to leave for
Mhm.
Hawaii. So that's um you stated you're from Oregon, I think?
Yeah. Yeah, where I came from before
Mhm.
Austin,
Yeah.
yep. I was actually living in Hawaii before I moved to Austin,
Okay.
but I did drive here from Oregon. Oregon is originally home.
That's originally home.
Yep,
Okay.
and, before I was in Austin, I was basically back and forth between Oregon and Hawaii.
Oh, cool. It's
Yeah.
the Oregon coast, right?
Yeah, well, actually, I was more in the mountains. I was a few hours from the coast, so near Mount Hood was
Okay.
where I was spent there, Hood River and Portland area, and
Mm,
then also some time in Bend was where I've spent all my time in Oregon.
nice. Those are 2 fantastic places
Mhm.
within the, in the US to be able to, um, go back and forth between. And, yeah, so you came to Austin for the purposes of, extending your practice.
Mhm.
Um, but before we dive into that, I would love for you to so I was looking at your website and your about section
Mhm.
expresses why or the passion behind this holistic, practice that you have.
Mhm.
And so that was due to some injuries, I believe?
Yeah, yeah, injuries were, yeah, definitely a part of my whole
Yeah.
story and journey. Um, yeah, I would say I started out in body work. I started doing manual therapy
Mhm.
and fascial release therapy. I studied massage therapy first and worked in clinic doing that for a couple years, kind of while I was doing the back and forth, doing a lot of playing
Mm.
between Oregon and Hawaii, surfing in Hawaii, and then I'd want to change the scenery and
Mhm.
get back to Oregon and with the seasons and
Yeah.
snowboard or kayak and things like that. But yeah, recreational activities, ones with more adrenaline, I've always definitely had a spot in my life, and I really value them, and it just makes me feel alive and find that flow state. And but also has led to some injuries. So I had a
Mhm.
knee surgery on my right knee about 6 years ago that learned a lot about the
Mhm.
rehab process and body mechanics and strength, and realizing that the system of, like, physical therapy, which was intriguing to me, is really good at getting someone from unable to walk, not able to function, to getting able to being able to function in
Mm.
their life, but not necessarily perform at a high level or get back to being able to really use their body
Sure.
in a way past just functioning. And that's what happened to me. And there was this big gap between, okay, I'm functioning, but how do I get back to like being able to fully express
Mm.
myself with my body
Mhm.
and move freely and all those things. So that was a big injury that I learned a lot from. And I also, a bigger one probably was, I had a shoulder injury. I think it was a year after the knee injury. Actually, maybe, yeah. Anyway, somewhere
Mhm.
in that next year. And separated my right AC joint mountain biking, and that one took a long time to figure out. It
Mm.
was, I got the MRI and I got the X-rays, and it seemed to, like, get mostly better to where I was able to function, but I couldn't actually perform it. Like, things like push-ups even
Mm.
were extremely painful, even months later, and I saw multiple different practitioners, and they all just said, "Oh, the images look okay, it's not broken, it's, blah, blah, blah." Not really sure, and then it was seeing a different practitioner finally who did some alternative approach stuff and did some muscle testing my muscle function in the shoulder region and realizing my pec major, pretty large muscle
Mm,
related to the shoulder, was completely inhibited, and not really working, and some smaller muscles were having to pick up all the slack, leaving a lot of dysfunction in the shoulder and a lot of shear force to cause pain with a lot of different movements.
mhm,
And so that was a massive one because I'd never heard of the modality he was using. And after seeing multiple orthopedics, physiotherapists, all the like, and
mhm.
massage therapists, chiros. So that was a big one. Um, and as well as a couple concussions. Concussions where I had one, they get worse every time, and then you get one, and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
this is serious.
Mm,
Leaving me with some memory issues temporarily.
mm.
Unable to have, like, this would have been really difficult having a complex conversation. I was getting anxiety for the first time in my
Wow.
life, and after a concussion, and then finding some alternative approaches within functional medicine for the brain, and just really the knowledge that, like, the brain can heal and it changes and it
Mhm,
can recover and regenerate, and it is constantly, depending on epigenetics, things you're doing with your body that I didn't learn in the conventional approach where they
mhm,
just said give it time and it's just the way it is. You kind of got
mm.
to wait it out.
Yeah. I've had a few concussions, few injuries. I had, Dave Mazzillo
Mhm.
on. He I think he, completely ruptured, like, it tore off his bone.
Tendon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
his pec, and we had a discussion about injuries, and, yeah, I've had multiple concussions, 14 staples in my head, my
Mhm.
skull.
Wow.
Yeah, that was I was very lucky that I'm still, 1, alive,
Yeah.
and 2, I'm not handicapped.
How did that one happen?
I think I was 18, and I was with my buddies, and we were drinking, and it was late at night, and they dared me to go run into a lake and just, like, dive into a lake.
Mm.
And so I ran as if you're running into the ocean, just
Yep.
running in and you just kinda dive in.
Yep.
And so the height of or just how deep I was in felt appropriate, but it was a lake, wasn't an ocean. So I
Yeah.
had a lot of boulders. So I dove head first into a huge boulder. And I immediately was like, "Oh my god, that was so." I hit my head so hard, but I
Mm.
didn't lose consciousness, but I remember the whole thing from
Mm.
this day. So then I was like, "Okay, I need to go back and, like, make sure I'm okay."
Mhm.
But I was 18, like I said, drinking and uh, just like, "Oh, I banged my head, but I'll be alright." And my buddies had a flashlight on their phone, and they were like, "You got mud all over your face." And it wasn't mud, it was blood. So we went back to their place and then just looked at it, and they were like, "Dude, you need to go to the hospital. Absolutely need to go to the hospital." And I was like, "No, I'll sleep it off. Sleep it off." I was like,
And they're looking at your skull.
they're like, "No, man, you cannot sleep this off." Um, so yeah, that was one of the more major injuries I've had, as well as breaking my wrist, and this all happened when I was a teenager. So there really wasn't any focus on or at least seriousness and intention with trying to recover properly, or at least optimally. Um, but now that I'm older, I've been in this community here. Taking care of your body is top of mind. And you had a post I saw. It was really cool. It was just like, um, we only have one body, and being able to not think of having the mindset of this is like a task that I need to do. This is like an act of reverence. I think you commented. I really liked how you framed that because um we only have one body. And so anyways, thank you for sharing those injuries. So you eventually did you start to get into the CHEK Institute studies, or was it other certifications?
Mhm. Yeah, the as I kinda slowly phased out of wanting to do body work as the thing I was doing, which didn't take long for me to realize it was a very limited approach,
Mhm.
and I wanted to be able to do more
When you say
and understand the body more.
yeah, when you say body work, do you mean just, like, fixed kinda like strength training?
So, sorry, body work. So that's kind of a term for massage therapy,
Oh,
like
okay.
hands-on body work. I was in a clinic for most of it where,
Okay.
yeah, people would come needing a massage because their neck hurts or
Mhm.
you know what I mean, something like that, and trying to help people with that and educate them, but realizing that it was very limited with them being on the table for an hour and me helping them, but a lot of it is it's a band-aid,
Mhm.
if they're not really changing their lifestyle, how they move, how they embody
Mhm.
the themselves and everything like
Mm.
that. Yeah. So I started to realize, okay, I want to learn more. Where am I going to go? I had a few different things that I wanted to look into further, but over some time, the CHEK Institute and Paul Chek and his teachings really stood out to me because of how holistic it seemed. There was a lot of people who seemed to know a lot about the holistic side of things. Maybe it was more the spiritual stuff, the mindset, psychology, and how that affects the body.
Mm.
And then maybe like there's the nutritional side, but then also the injury rehabilitation side, the movement side,
Mm.
and the science of that. And yeah, Paul Chek and the system he's created and his institute really seemed to be the most well-rounded, where it actually tied all of those
Mm.
together, and I had never seen something that had tied them all together and really not had that, like, niche,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
that was intriguing, and I wanted to learn about all of them.
Mm. Yeah. I, uh, I started following Paul Check on Instagram, I think prior to meeting you,
Mhm.
because my buddy Jay was like, "This guy's 60 years old and he's doing this." I was like, "Wow, this guy
Mhm.
is jacked and he looks very healthy." Um, but ever since then, yeah, I've been diving into what he's been doing, and I expressed to you at one point I was, like, interested in learning, or
Mhm.
I don't know if I would dive into, trying to get my certification and like, being a practitioner.
Mhm.
Just not the right timing. I'm kind of focused on this, but I do believe everybody should kind of hone in on getting some type of general study of these different facets.
Sure. Agreed.
Um, and there's multiple areas that has been lacking for me. So, um, and I'm like steadily bouncing from like I did physical training, and prior to that I was like more meditation, and then
Mhm.
now it's kind of spiritual and
Mhm.
use like implementing plant medicine and um, trying that out, and so yeah, just seeing the CHEK Institute. I think you said or uh, Matt is a practitioner as well. He got his
Yeah.
certification.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, it's cool because their system is so based around there's a lot of entry level type courses and
Hmm.
things you can dive into, and it's so based around you embodying it first
Hmm.
without being a practitioner. You really like just practicing it and for yourself.
Hmm.
So it all starts there.
Yeah.
We're all on our own journey, and they really push like you got to do this stuff,
Hmm.
and then you that's how you learn about it is you experience it, and then you can maybe share it with other people
Yeah.
as a practitioner.
Yeah.
But it always starts, I think, whether you want it to or not, as experience it first, teach from experience,
Mm.
embody it, set the example. And
Yeah.
so I think that's the cool thing is they it's all through that lens of like if you're not practicing this stuff, you're not going to attract clients.
Right.
You're not going to perform with clients.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. You have to have practical experience instead of just reading from a book and studying and taking the course.
totally.
And I think you expressed that through the difficulty that we all face right now is we have infinite amounts of information to be able to see all these different modalities and different ways of eating and trying to be healthier. And you have one expert on one side and one expert on the other. And I think
Mhm.
that was a cool post what you described there. Um, I believe you were stating that you have to experience this truth for yourself.
Mhm.
You have to dive into nutrition, different foods and whatnot,
Mhm.
and see that for yourself. And so that's something that kind of hit me hard when you first posted that, because I was like, I mean, all of your posts have been hitting me hard because I'm like, I'm doing all these different things, man. I'm doing the sauna and the ice, and you have, different portrayals of all these modalities can be well. You can have well intentions, but you can also use them to help with recovery. But at the same time, you can stress yourself out.
Mhm.
So, um, anyways, you started to test this out. I'm assuming. Were you in Hawaii at the time, or?
In terms of nutritional stuff or which stuff specifically?
Um,
All of it?
I guess if you wanna just go with a chronological, timeline of just,
Mhm.
kinda getting into this realm of
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I started a lot of it was even before I found the CHEK Institute interesting to me
Mhm.
from an early age. My dad was pretty into eating healthy
Mm,
and started blending, like, green smoothies and green juices when I was, like, 10,
mm,
and slowly kind of got introduced to them like that. And so nutrition was always I was always trying to eat healthy,
mhm.
and you enjoy life and you slip up and you're young and you're having fun, you live
Yeah.
life. And so there was times where I was not eating healthy at all. And also in hindsight, you look back and you're like, I thought that was healthy and it wasn't. And
Well,
that's part of the journey.
yeah, I mean, it's pretty common for most Americans to be eating
Mhm.
like shit, especially
True.
nowadays, but over
True.
the course of time, I mean, fast food restaurants and whatnot, I was eating 6, 7 donuts when I was, like, 12 years old at Dunkin' Donuts,
Totally.
man.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, trying to things like nutrition and trying to eat healthy has been something that's really started since I moved out right after, high
Mhm,
school and
mhm,
was all of a sudden supporting myself and making all the decisions, having that
mhm,
like sovereignty of like, okay, what am I gonna eat? I gotta make the decisions. What am I gonna buy? What's expensive? What can
mhm,
I afford? All those things and in experimenting and learning what works with your body and yeah, one thing that stands out is it's overwhelming for
mm,
sure. All these
mhm,
topics, a lot of these topics, specifically nutrition, because there's so much contradicting information.
mhm.
I remember at times being overwhelmed and being frustrated because what's the truth? That was what drove a lot of this journey for me was just a curiosity and seeking for truth,
Mm,
and that can change from person to person. But it also there is some, I think, objective truths out there as well. Um, and so
what would those be?
mm,
If you could mention a couple.
yeah, yeah. I think that it revolves around we're all gonna, to an extent, have our own truth because we all have one relationship that's the biggest in our life, and it's the
Mhm,
relationship to ourself.
mm,
And that relationship to yourself really dictates so many things about your life and your reality and what happens in your life. And because I believe we're all creating our reality to an
mhm,
extent and have the ability to create a reality, whether we realize it or not,
mm,
through that relationship to ourself and how we just perceive things, positive, negative. That becomes our truth in a subjective way, but I think there is that objective truth of we are electrical beings. We have this. There's different frequencies we can experience
mm,
from fear to love would be
yeah,
maybe two ends of the spectrum and everything in between. And um, yeah, I think there are objective objective truths, like certain things are obviously better to put in your body than
mhm,
others in terms of how natural the substance is and how synthetic or toxic it is to the body. There's that objective reaction your body has on a chemical level. And there's also kind of like the truth of belief and placebo. So
mm,
if you I think your relationship to yourself through your food or your relationship to food can dictate a lot. So that for an example, there's a study where two groups of people consumed the same mixture or
mm,
milkshake. And one group was told that it was healthy and it was this smoothie with all these nutrients, and the other group was told it was really tasty milkshake with all the goodies in it, and it's a sweet
mm,
sugary thing, and both groups had very different reactions to the same
mm,
substance in their body on a
yeah,
physiological level, blood sugar response, all the very subjective
yeah,
things. So there's
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I had my buddy Hutch on, I'm not sure if you've met him.
Mhm.
We had a brief conversation about this because Joe Dispenza's Top of Mind. It's a book that I've been reading, Becoming Supernatural. I'm almost
Mhm.
done with it, but he
Cool.
also has You Are the Placebo.
Mhm.
And Hutch gave an example of people uh, being involved in an experiment where they're given uppers or downers,
Mhm.
but they're told the opposite.
Mhm.
And so their body reacts so differently. That's like
Yeah.
fascinating to me.
Yeah.
It's like the power of belief
Mhm.
is incredible, but it's also a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
It's wild to me.
Totally.
But anyways,
That ties in so tightly with, like,
yeah,
we're creating the reality. You know, double
yeah,
edged doesn't matter, good, bad, like, you have the power and
yeah.
you're gonna use it one way or the other.
Yeah, it's like something that comes to my mind really quickly is like Warren Buffett. He's in his 90s. He has a Diet Coke and a cheeseburger from McDonald's every day,
Mhm.
or supposedly has that kind of
Mhm.
routine, and
Mhm.
he's in his 90s,
Mhm.
and there's probably other things that he's doing,
Sure.
but it's just crazy,
Totally.
how you perceive something could you could be consuming something that, uh typically is believed to be, yeah, like an upper, and all of a sudden your body, because of your framework, your mental framework, and your belief in it, just completely changes your physiological reaction in a way that's opposed to what the whatever the substance you're taking would typically do. Um,
I think
so
Warren Buffett's a great opportunity for an example. So Warren Buffett could eat that every day, and sure, you could argue very easily those things are not ideal for the human body on a long-term basis, but we adapt. You know, our bodies are amazing at
mm,
adapting. That's
mhm,
what they do best. And so his body adapts to taking that in, and sure, he has a lot of resources. He's doing other things probably,
yeah,
but I think his relationship to his body and his nutrition and his choices and what he consumes and how he feels about it. Does he
mm,
feel guilt
right,
for doing it? I would say
probably not,
probably not,
yeah,
because I think that can have a big effect. You could have him consuming these things and feeling really good about like his life he's lived and
mhm,
just how he feels about himself. He just feels good.
mhm,
There's not he's not doing the wrong thing.
mm,
You know, that conflict of like he's doing something, he feels aligned with it. If he
yeah,
has that inner conflict of like, this is bad,
mhm,
but I'm doing it anyway, that has a lot of an effect, I think. So you could compare him to someone who's at peak health, maybe 30 years old, you know, a male, low body fat, super fit, lifts lots of weights, does everything right, super strong, especially to the naked eye, like, oh, that's the perfect specimen of a human. And they could have a horrible relationship with food. They could be in that, you know, looking in the mirror and like, "Oh, my abs look horrible today."
mm,
Like, and when I do eat this thing, like, and I feel my body in this way, I also feel like I'm eating too much. You know, the whole body dysmorphia, like
mhm,
all the
yeah,
stuff,
yeah,
and working out and like it's punishment,
yeah,
and they could have a completely they could have a worse reaction in their body because of
mm,
all the metaphysical stuff going on and the physical stuff in their body
mhm,
to food that is actually far objectively
yeah,
far better than the
yeah,
Coke and the
yeah.
McDonald's.
When you say metaphysical, is that, uh, are you relating that to your body's chemical composition and reaction to the thought processes and beliefs that you have?
It's a good question. I would say, yeah, anything maybe outside. It's hard to separate it because the a lot of it is physical, could argue,
Mhm,
the stuff going on in your brain. But yeah, maybe just things that are less tangible and physiological. So the
mm,
energetics of things and yeah, I
mm,
think you summed it up pretty
okay.
well.
That's like it seems to me that's, uh, foundational to your entire holistic health routine,
Mhm.
is your framework and belief system towards and relationship that you have with yourself and to the things that you're incorporating.
Yep.
Um, when I started coming to Austin, well, I was already in a meditation routine, but I was like, all right, let's get nutrition down. And I was like really strict with it. And I was
Mhm.
like, I don't want to eat out because I don't want any seed oils. But then you just get nervous if you go out and you do have seed
Mhm.
oils. And
And you feel
then
the guilt
and you
maybe, and
feel the
maybe you don't,
guilt.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my main vice growing up from teenager was alcohol. So at first, my relationship with alcohol was like fun. It was so fun to like get buzzed with your buddies. But
Mhm.
over time, over years, that like subconsciously changed, and my relationship with alcohol changed. And so I had more of a restrictive, like averse relationship with it. So if I had even like one drink, I was like kind of guilty or I felt bad
Mhm.
about it. And now it's like I don't really drink at all. It's been 4 months since I've had a drink. And I've honestly, there's no, before, if I tried doing that, I would have this in the back of my mind, like, don't drink, don't drink, don't like
Mhm.
now it's been so natural, like the
Mhm.
frequency of me drinking and whatnot. But yeah, it's just very, I love that you mentioned that. Uh that your relationship to all these things is very important, and still, like, not thinking you're, yeah, you know, you have superpowers mentally. I mean, the mind is an incredible thing, and I think we don't know everything about it, but to think like, "Oh, I could power through I could develop just mentally a very healthy framework and stay in the sauna for 60 minutes every day."
Mhm.
I don't know if that would, I think it would catch up on you for a bit, but,
It's hard to say because we're living in a place of we're not there,
yeah.
or I can't speak for you, but I think I get what you're saying.
Mhm.
Like the power of the mind, I think is yeah, it's immense. So I think there is you can override a lot,
Mm.
and you can compromise a lot
Yeah.
of good, and you can override a lot of bad. And I don't explore this too much with myself. I just, I try.
Mhm.
I mean, I do, but not to the extremes. But I
Yeah.
think it's hard to say what is, yeah.
Yeah. I know we're kinda straying away from your timeline, we can go right back to it, but, one, staying with the topic of objective truths in regards to nutrition, I
Mhm.
feel like that might not exist, but something that I feel based off of observations is animal protein seems to be, um, scalable for most human beings.
Mhm.
Would you agree with that, or do you think, like, have you seen certain like, people that I think, Jordan Peterson's daughter, Michaela, she had to stick with lamb
Mhm.
for her diet in order to help with her, all of the systems in her body.
Sure.
And so I'm curious if, that's something that you've seen, through your clients and just through studying.
Mhm. Um, Scalable as in good for most people, or
Yeah,
is
I
there
mean,
like an objective thing that is good?
yeah, and there seems to be a trend of, going vegan and vegetarian, which I don't personally
Mhm.
follow that path.
Sure.
I don't plan on it either. But,
Mhm.
yeah, I was curious if you thought, what you've seen
Mhm.
through animal protein and
Yeah, it's a massive topic. It's That's related to so many things,
yeah.
it's, um, in terms of health of the human and function and performance and feeling good and all the things we kind of think of in terms of vibrant health, I would say it's super important. I think there's rare cases, maybe haven't experienced it or met anyone, but I've heard stories through clients and whatnot, different practitioners of people who had adverse reactions.
Mm,
I don't think it was to all meat. I think it was maybe certain types.
okay.
And and then there's the opposite spectrum of people who have something going on in terms of autoimmune or something else that we don't fully understand, where their body's reacting to everything
Mhm,
but meat or but lamb and salt.
mhm.
um, but I think yes, to sum it up, I think it's extremely important. I haven't I don't remember the last time I didn't eat meat a day.
Yeah,
You know what I
same.
mean? So, I
That's primarily what I eat every day.
yeah,
Eggs
yeah,
eggs and
mhm,
and red meat for the most part.
yeah.
Just started it to incorporate, raw, actually lamb liver
Mhm,
with, and, so what I was trying to do is soak it in honey.
mhm.
So I thought I would cut it up, soak the bits in honey, and then do a little bit of salt, and then I'll put it back in the freezer.
Mm, that sounds good,
Just
that's a good
pop them in your
idea.
mouth real
Yeah,
quick.
yeah. Yeah, it's funny too because it depends on how big you do it, but you can almost swallow it, like
Yeah, and I just don't like the taste of liver,
yeah,
so it's
but even
helpful.
frozen, you could just
Yeah,
pop it
yeah,
down like a pill,
because
yeah.
it's chewy, so if you don't like
Mhm.
the taste of it, you're, like, chewing on it
Oh,
forever.
yeah. Yeah, I haven't been consuming a lot of raw liver lately in isolation. I have, been cooking it. We've been doing a lot of organ blends
Mm,
and really like that. We'll just do a pound of that a day,
Mm,
to get a nice portion. But yeah, definitely went through a long phase of like acclimating to the raw liver,
mhm,
and sometimes yeah, it depends on the liver. Sometimes it actually started to taste pretty sweet. I
mm,
noticed, especially it just depended. Especially when I compared it to, yeah, I think lamb and chicken were both good, but beef I liked a lot
yeah,
more.
yeah,
Or
yeah,
maybe try pate,
pâté.
which is
D
good. It's gonna be cooked
Okay,
liver and it's like
okay,
creamy, but then they cook it with a lot of fat, like bacon fat or some
gotcha.
kind of fat, and it's kinda like a
Oh,
dip.
mm.
It sounds pretty gross,
No,
and
that sounds great.
okay,
That sounds great.
I was pretty surprised. It's
Yeah,
yeah, and then you, like, maybe have dip a cracker or a
yeah.
potato in it or something.
Huh.
Good.
I've been told if you soak, liver in, buttermilk, it
Mm.
extracts that whatever is in it that like, that brings that taste that you might not like.
Mhm.
Haven't tried it though,
Mhm.
but I've been told by a vendor at the farmer's market locally here to do that, so maybe I'll try it out, but I
Mhm.
don't know what it's yeah, what's happening with that process and what it's extracting, but,
Mhm. Have you tried the organ blends?
so Shertill Creek, I was gonna say, they have the caveman blend,
Yep.
and I believe it's got, like, heart, liver,
Maybe spleen.
spleen, and so that's just prepackaged.
Mhm.
I'll just cook that baby up
Yeah.
and throw a little bit of, healthy ketchup on it.
Yeah.
'Cause I like ketchup. I've liked ketchup since I was a little kid. I get the Primal Kitchen one,
Yeah, yeah, we
so
like
I
theirs
pay a little
too.
more, yeah,
Uh-huh.
it's pretty
Yeah.
good.
There's not even sugar in
There's
that. I
no
don't get how it tastes
yeah.
like ketchup.
Yeah, it tastes yeah, yeah. So, I've been doing that I was doing that for a bit, um, which just felt great. It's like you're
Mhm.
just getting this mixture of ground beef with liver, heart, and potentially, yeah, spleen or kidney, and you just saute it, cook it, and then, yeah, I'll eat that, alongside some Shertill Creek eggs as well.
Yeah.
So, it's
Good.
just like, I mean, I feel great.
Mm.
I've been doing the same meal. That's my first meal of the day. I've been doing this for probably over a year now or around a year now.
Right on.
I feel so good.
You can't argue in terms of, like, yeah, you were talking about scalability. Like, you can't argue that those foods, these animal foods, eggs, meats, all the ruminants, the organ meats, they're higher in nutrients
Mhm.
than most foods.
That's what it seems,
And
yeah.
there's some plant foods that are high in nutrients too, and they can be healthy. But a lot of times, like the difference is a lot of plants have some anti-nutrients, and
Mhm.
they're not those nutrients just are likely not near as bioavailable
Yeah.
unless you learn how to prepare them properly, which is totally doable. But
Yeah.
in terms of bioavailable nutrients, vitamins, minerals, uh, yeah, I think animal protein. I think also when you're thinking about protein, because of that bioavailability, any protein from a plant, you shouldn't necessarily count in your if you are tracking macros and trying to hit a protein goal. I think it should be
Mhm.
like, was it from an animal? Was it complete
Yeah.
protein? Like even collagen's from an animal, but it's not a complete
Mhm.
protein. And so I try to just think, I don't really track, but I try to make sure I'm getting, a good amount of animal protein
Mhm.
for protein
Yeah.
with every meal and
Yeah.
every day.
Yeah. Cool. Anyways, uh, to get back to the timeline that we were at, I think we
Mhm.
were discussing it. You're edging into so you've always been, pretty in tune with nutrition because your father was kind of into that, and then but you were getting kind of frustrated a little bit too, here and there?
Definitely at times, yeah, confused and
Yeah.
just overwhelmed because it's true. And I think there's always going to be people who argue and think like, oh, this is the one thing that's best for everyone.
Mhm.
And I think that anyone trying to give a dogmatic approach, that's the first red
Yeah.
flag. They're
Yeah.
either selling something or they don't understand something well enough or they want to simplify it.
Mhm.
And it can be simple. Like it's good to start simple. Eat real food is a
Yeah.
great simple, eliminate processed food. That will do wonders for
Yeah.
most people. But then if you want to, there's multiple tiers of like, okay, does that food actually work well for you? I think like eggs are a common thing that can give people issues. Not
Mm.
forever, but
Mm.
it's definitely
Yeah.
definitely a thing that every food has a potential to cause issues in anyone. So there's no one size fits all. But
Mhm.
I lost my train of thought. What was I going with?
We were talking about, just how you face a difficult time when it comes to
Yeah,
studying nutrition
I
and
got
testing it out for
it.
yourself.
So I think one of the biggest things that's at the root of the confusion and contradiction is that basically political agendas. I think there's a lot of information out there that's driven by money and different things like that. You could argue so many things, what the conspiracy or the agendas are, but
Kinda
the war
crazy.
on saturated fat, for example,
Yeah.
like that's
Well,
animal fat.
New York City the New York City mayor is trying to limit meat and dairy in the city.
Oh man, that's
I
it's
I
getting pretty wild.
I don't like so
It's
I
getting
don't
wild.
even like to share that stuff anymore. I'm
Mhm.
trying to, like, because I realized through my own path, I'm jumping from topic to topic,
It's
but
all good, man.
on my own path, share giving energy to those kinda things, those negative things, like, you don't wanna
Sure,
ignore them,
sure.
but, like, whenever I kept posting stuff, it just didn't feel good. So for
Mhm,
me, this conversation
mhm.
helps with maybe people see it and have a different opinion and maybe push back on what the New York City mayor is trying to do. But the fact that he's trying to do the entire city, limit your ability to eat meat and like nutritious foods and go vegan because it in the name of the planet. But it's
Mhm,
like, have you looked into the process of making vegan foods?
mhm.
It's terrible for the environment. Anyways,
No,
sorry,
no,
I
you
had a
don't have to go
rant
there.
on that.
That's exactly my point is there's a lot of there's still so many people if people are and we're all subject to programming and our perception and everything being tainted by what we were taught, what subconsciously even billboards,
Yeah.
everything is affecting our programming and how we see the world. But some people more than others are under that spell of wait, saturated fat. There were so many times where I read that was unhealthy, like
Mhm.
coconut oil,
Yeah.
um, tallow, like these,
Yeah.
the some of the most nutrient dense foods and forms of fat, and then they're pushing the unhealthy fats that are in processed
Mhm.
foods. Um, and so that's a big one is that you have to kind of if you are on the journey and trying to understand this stuff to a real level, not just be on the surface, then you have to kind of navigate all that over time and choose who to trust because there's people saying different things.
Mhm.
And one way to do it is like, okay, which person looks vibrantly healthy? Like the mayor of New York probably doesn't. I don't know
Yeah,
even know
I
who it
don't
is, but
yeah.
a lot of the politicians and the people who, a lot of the politicians who argue things and then do the opposite for their children, and that's just a
Right.
good sign of, like, the people arguing for the Silicon Valley people, like, they don't let their kids have iPhones. They're always talking about in the
Yeah.
documentary, like, they're like, "Oh, yeah, this is what we're working," but, like, not for my kid.
Yeah.
Like, don't go there,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
um, so that's a big part of it, the contradicting information of heart animal protein and saturated fat and cholesterol and all these things that whether it's just confusion or there's ulterior motives and whatever different agendas. It is simple, but it's also really complex. It's just the way it is. Like cholesterol is a complex topic. You can't just simplify it, but you can try to simplify it and just say like, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Like if you eat, like you can have high cholesterol and still be really healthy. You need cholesterol for a lot of hormonal
Mhm.
reactions and testosterone and if you just eat real food and cut out the processed food, easier said than done, sure. Then you can really not worry about your health in terms of like, I thought that, what about my cholesterol? Like, just
Yeah.
watch your results and then feel your body feel better. So that's a big part of the confusion. But anyway, continue.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've had family members, uh, try to tell me my diet is unhealthy.
Same.
Eating meat and eggs. You should eat some vegetables
Mm,
and fruit. I do eat some fruit.
yep,
I'm staying away from I actually did go to the neuro trainer
you
that
did.
yeah, I
Allison?
spoke to Allison
Cool.
and, 'cause I had a major I'll show you the video maybe after this recording. It was unreal.
Really?
From my feet to my skull.
A reaction, right? Or what was it?
It was hives
Mm-hmm.
everywhere.
Oh, man.
I'm not kidding. I'll show you that
Yeah.
like, everywhere, and it happened so quickly.
Mm.
So she told me,
Did it have to do with your lungs? What was going
I have the email," and so she gave me some nutritional switches.
Mhm.
Supposedly, she was like, the beginning of her email was like, "You are the most obvious client that I've had." And I was like, because she told me I was pretty healthy,
Mhm.
and I had inadvertently increased my histamine consumption, which I don't
Mhm.
even know what histamines are,
Mm.
to be honest.
Mhm.
But whenever you face an allergic reaction, you take antihistamines.
Yep.
So,
To suppress the reaction,
yeah.
or you could get it actually resolved from someone like her.
Yeah, so, avoiding yogurt,
Mm.
Greek yogurt, avocados, which I fucking love avocados.
Mm.
Having, yes, and then bone broth, avoiding bone broth because I was having a cup of bone broth every
Say
day.
why for that one?
I don't I assumed it was because it's associated with histamines, but
Mm.
I
Mm.
don't know. It kinda got clumped into
Sure,
that.
sure. You'll have to forward me the email.
Yeah.
I love reading those
Sure,
emails.
yeah, I'd be happy to because
Mm.
I haven't followed up with her, which I plan on it.
Mm.
So I had avocados and some bone broth once she told me all that, so I finished it, and then she was like, "Once you don't have to start now, you can start soon."
Yeah.
And, so avoiding those and then certain subconscious beliefs.
Mhm.
My family, on one side has just like, my great uncle, terrible allergies, like, deathly allergic to all dairy
Mm.
and, like, grain and whatnot.
Mhm.
Anyways, where was I going with that? Uh, shit. Um Oh, yeah, I was just talking about family members kind of or telling me what to do with my diet,
Sure.
and, yeah, so I've been incorporating fruit and avocados and bone broth, and I've been feeling great, and then I had this allergic reaction, so I might kind of substitute and
Mhm.
test, but, I started to do she recommended grapefruit and oranges, more of those,
Cool.
so
I've
I'm
been
eat
munching grapefruits lately.
I love
I've been having one
grapefruits.
every morning to break
Yeah.
my fast. It's pretty
Really?
it's
Okay.
pretty great experience.
Yeah, so I was eating a lot of grapefruits for a while, and then I stopped, and so now I'm reincorporating them. And man, I can't. I've probably had a couple oranges in the past 5 years, 6
Yeah.
years. So I'm gonna start having
Cool.
oranges and some lemons, and
I've been eating a
so
lot of oranges too. I've been
yeah.
eating like 3 or 4 oranges a day.
I think I saw Camille post a picture.
Yeah.
It's like, "You guys got, like, a
Mhm.
dozen in your drawer." Um, so anyways, yeah, I think it's great to be able to test trial
Mhm.
and to explore that within yourself. Um, going back to your path of just nutrition, or the next step, where did you find yourself?
Mm. Yeah, it was, the nutritional journey was a big part of it as well. That's been more recent, and Camille's been a big part of that. I've learned a lot from her, which is
Nice.
great. But,
Yeah.
and neurotraining, she introduced me to
Mm,
that right when we were meeting. And yeah, it's been super eye opening. But yeah, just I went through until probably like a couple years ago when I started to realize that the raw food, raw vegetables specifically, can cause actually harm, not just good.
mm,
And doing years of a lot of cooked vegetables, but a lot of raw vegetables,
mhm.
smoothies with kale and chard in it and different things like that.
Yeah.
And that actually led to, I think that was from the sound of it from working with Allie and another
Mhm.
trainer. One of the things that caused some gut dysbiosis and some issues with my microbiome.
Mm,
And yeah, so I mean the nutrition one's long, and it really, what I would say is if you're interested in it and you want to learn more about it, anyone out there, like just keep at it and just be patient and keep trying to have an open mind and learning from different people. And I don't think any dogmatic approach, even the veganism or like the keto or the carnivore, like they can all be great and they can be helpful. But
mm.
I think balance is good as well. Not just balance as in like, oh, you can still party and you can still eat Oreos and shit, but like just, like not having anything too extreme. Like you wanted to be able to have a good relationship with it
Yeah.
and live your life too.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, it's been been such a long journey with the Czech stuff.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out, like, where to jump in and where what
Yeah.
topic. Maybe give me a little bit more of
Yeah.
specificity on what you wanna chat about.
Sure, yeah. I mean,
I'm an open book.
yeah, something so nutritional I've been diving into. So lately, you may have seen I participated in my first ayahuasca retreat,
Mhm,
plant medicine.
mhm,
I think actually right after it, um, you posted something how it was a great post, and I'm very grateful for it because of my experience with ayahuasca was amazing.
mhm,
It's profound. In regards to the elevated emotions that I experienced, there were some challenges.
mhm,
There were some amazing insights and lessons learned.
mhm.
And I've been able to incorporate different behavioral changes ever since then.
Awesome.
Um, I plan on doing it again, but what your posted for me was you should never be attached to it and your
Mm,
relationship to it,
mm,
and that we all have the power to incorporate this
mm,
higher, whatever you want to call a higher consciousness, higher form
mhm.
of energy within us without needing it. I mean, but they are great teachers.
Sure.
So I was wondering if maybe you could dive into your experience with learning about that if you've gone into plant medicines yourself,
Mhm,
and maybe where, or if you can share where your stance is in like a spiritual presence, because I going back into the mindset too,
mhm.
you kind of incorporate a little bit of spirituality. It's the post where you're standing up and closing your eyes, and you said, I love this quote too. It was heaven and hell have the same address, and it's in between your left and
Mm,
right ear.
mm.
I thought that was awesome.
Yeah,
So I was wondering if you could share maybe some context on
sure.
that.
Yeah, I am a supporter of psychedelic substances. I think they're amazing, and they have so much potential and benefit, and I do think that if our water system got dosed with some LSD, like, it would solve a lot of shit. Like, the entire country. Just the right amount, but no,
Let's switch the fluoride for
yeah,
LSD.
just the micro little bits. Um, yeah, I think they have a lot of potential in their medicine, and I am so glad and that they exist and grateful for my experiences with them. They've been a massive tool for me, and, I think maybe I mentioned in that post, but yeah, it's a tool, like, that's what it is. I
Mhm.
think, so many things are a tool and they have this potential. You can dig a hole with a shovel or you can cut someone's head off, like, you know what I mean? It's a tool, it depends how you use it, for good or
I
bad or
I totally agree.
whatever. Um, and yeah, it's a lot of substances, but yeah, your relationship to it is what
Mhm.
dictates it. For example, like psilocybin, I think is amazing. One of my favorite substances that has psychoactive effects and can be such a great thing to utilize when you need a little bit of a reminder or you get caught up in the rat race of life and we're separating from this spiritual experience of life and we're starting to achieve and or be caught up with achievement and all these things and money and all these things that I think somewhat taint the human spirit, you know what I mean, in the mind. But I've done ayahuasca. I was able to do a ceremony when was that? A few years ago, and a lot of value from it. I thought it was
Mm.
great. It was really cool. I got to sit the ceremony with my dad.
Really?
That was cool, and it
That's
was his
dope.
first time. It was both our first time,
Wow.
and we had eaten mushrooms together before
Yeah.
and such, and are super close. But that was really cool, and I'd like to do it again. It's not pressing. I'm in a stage right now. The chapter and stage I'm in right now is I'm just life is psychedelic
Yeah. Yeah.
as hell right now
Yeah.
for me, and
Yeah.
and I just it's
I know exactly what you're
yeah,
saying.
it's not
Yeah.
needed at the moment, and
Yeah.
a lot of things are clicking and falling into place, and I'm just diving deep in a lot of things, and I think the main thing is that when when you have when you take a substance enough of a dose to really go in and ate the mushrooms or tab acid or something, you get that there's this like clarity is a simple way to put it, of like that insight of just this is what has been floating around in your reality or in your subconscious. And then, but you didn't really notice it, or you
Mm.
didn't focus on it enough to realize what it was. And then it just, it's like a light shining
Yeah.
on it up, and you're like, just think back, and I'm like, you're at a concert or whatever, and then you're like, nope, this is
Yeah.
what I'm paying attention.
Yeah.
It's the download or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the great benefits of just like that reflection and realization that you was so obvious, but it wasn't in hindsight. It
Mhm.
was so obvious, and
Mm.
it's teaching you something about your life, and or about you and how you're living your life and how you're showing up, where you're really where you're out of authenticity or alignment is
Yeah.
usually what it shows me.
Yeah.
And what I've noticed is that that can show up and be clarified for you without the substance. Like
Mm.
if you pay enough attention to your thoughts in your mind and your
Yeah.
internal.
So this is something I wanted to kinda tap into from
Yeah,
my own
sure.
perspective. I just turned 30. My first intentional, um yeah, my first time taking space of mind to evaluate my life was at
Mhm.
25. Left a few things, and I had the I'm grateful for my parents because they provided me the security, so, like, the ability to stay at their place after leaving a job, and then I was just ordering books and staying at their place and took time off from work, so I had, like, multiple months to just do nothing, like, not have work responsibilities, so I had space of mind to meditate, exercise, read what was piquing my natural curiosity, which was changing my mindset and becoming emotionally stronger and in tune with myself. And so I h- I very much agree with what you stated just moments ago, but also in the post is that we can achieve all of this through space of time and to give ourselves the freedom, the free time to evaluate
Yep.
and alongside the podcast, my main 9 to 5 is for a Bitcoin startup. And
Mhm.
so this has prompted my specialized knowledge and attention towards our money system.
Mhm.
And so the rat race, right?
Yeah.
And we have printed the most amount of money we have ever printed in human history.
Can
And
we even take it seriously anymore?
no,
Yeah.
it's ridiculous. And
Yeah.
so I've stated this a couple times in the past, so I don't mean to be a broken record, but every time they print money, you can consider it, and it might sound kinda crazy for people that don't understand the intricacies of our monetary system and the relationship between time, but they're stealing your time.
Mm.
They're not stealing they're not like, "Oh, we're fixing problems, we're patching holes." It's like,
Great way
n
to think about it.
every single time they print money, they're stealing your time. If you have $10,000 saved in a bank account and you're a good person and you're saving that money, you're not spending it. Well, they print $2 trillion. Well, everything around you gets more expensive. And your $10,000, that numerical value stays the same, but everything around you does not.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, I think that, yes, psychedelics, you shouldn't be attached to it. You shouldn't be attached to your identity. And you shouldn't think that it heals everything, right? Time heals all. But, I do think for me, I felt a call to it, and
Mhm.
that can be the scenario for many people,
Yeah.
and specifically in this time era, going back to them printing our government printing tons and tons of money, it's unfortunate because people are losing their time, their ability to not be in a survival rat race mode
Yeah.
to just cover the basis of
Totally.
what they need, and so if you're doing that for so long, it's so hard to unravel that, and I think
For
that
sure.
I hope to see psychedelics provide the ability to help people in those kind of situations.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I hope we can fix our monetary system so that we have more time.
Right.
Uh, anyways, I wanted to kind of highlight that because
Mhm.
there was a certain moment where I took ayahuasca and I was like, I want to do this all the time,
Yeah.
because it was so.
Totally.
I had I had never experienced the amount of love and compassion and
Mhm.
joy it was like you've got a fresh brain, you're just
Mhm.
a little kid and your first joyful moment. It was like
Yeah.
that happened again. And so I was like, "Yeah, let's do this every Friday."
Right.
You know, like,
Totally.
let's get some, fire pit in the middle of the Costa Rica jungle and play some music and sip that sacred juice,
Yeah.
that soul wine.
Mm.
Anyways,
Yeah, something to add real quick just on that
yeah,
topic
yeah.
that I didn't mention before is it's with it being a tool, like, your relationship to it dictates all. So,
Mhm.
your intention for taking it is such a massive
Yeah.
part of it, like, and not just it's easy to have, like, "Oh, yeah, this is my intention," but what's your intention?
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
what deep down or it's a voice that you are ignoring and you
Mhm.
still know, but it's you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Your intention really dictates, and I think if you're using it, obviously, for an escape, then it's gonna be
Yeah.
different than if you're using it
Absolutely.
for to go deeper and go into the cave
Mhm.
and be open to pain, be
Yeah.
open to exploring your shadow and the, I had one more thing. I think a big part of it is, like, whatever you're ready for is what it's gonna give you,
Mhm.
and at the same time, if you want something, it might not give you that.
Yeah.
You know what I
That's the
mean?
common theme that I hear.
Mhm.
You might want something, but you might not get what you want, but
Yes.
you get what you probably needed.
So the more of, like, an expectation and agenda you can have for the experience, I think the more it's gonna surprise you and tell you
Yeah.
to, like, shut the hell up and
Yeah.
surrender. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? The more you can just surrender to what you're supposed to experience, because I
Yeah.
think it goes for, like, teachers or mentors or relationships. Like, you're gonna be given exactly what you need
Mm.
for that where you are,
Yeah.
for you to take the next step.
Yeah.
Sometimes that step's down, before it goes up,
Yeah.
and that could be a scary experience. I don't the bad trip, they can be very scary and unfortunate, but I don't think there's really a bad trip. I think you're gonna experience what you're ready for and what
Yeah.
you need to experience at that time, and that goes for the medicine. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I resonate with that,
mhm,
and, I didn't really have any rigid expectations of what was going to occur when taking it.
mhm,
I did just kind of organically become friends with Jay,
mhm,
and throughout the year that I knew Jay, I just was coming to the gym, formula and, like, just diving into these tapping into these changes in life, and whether it was strength training and mobility and nutrition and emotional and being in tune with that, and
mhm,
so, like, yeah, it was just kind of, step up to it. It wasn't just like, "I feel depressed, like, chronically depressed,
totally.
let me take ayahuasca to fix that." Wasn't that at all. It just felt, "There's something that I'm having trouble
Mhm,
tuning into, something that feels like intuitively, subconsciously within me, it's difficult for me to process, to improve upon." And yeah, the plant medicine did very much so assist me in certain realms of my life. And yeah, being able to like take what you learn and then continue the
right,
momentum, not just
totally.
being like, well, I'm going to do this every 6 months.
Yeah.
And maybe I might try to do that. I don't know, but it
Mhm.
depends. Like
I
I'm
think the
got,
calling you mentioned sorry to interrupt. I think
yeah,
the
yeah.
calling you mentioned is a great rule
Yeah.
of thumb of,
If
like,
if
it called you and you listened and you were listening for when it called you,
yeah,
and then it did.
yeah,
And so kinda being in tune with that call,
yeah, yeah, for sure. Um,
because it's like yeah, it's the same thing. It's like, what's the quote? I don't know if it was one of the McKenna brothers or, like, "When you get the message, hang up the phone." Like,
yeah,
you're on the phone, you get the download, like, hang it up and go integrate.
yeah,
Don't stay on the phone, like, "I'll be back in a month, like, I wanna
yeah,
hear more of the message, I want more of the euphoria," or whatever it is, like
yeah. And so that's something that's a great segue into how you integrated. Did you have any intentional? Did you assign anything afterwards when you did ayahuasca with your father or psychedelics? 'Cause for me, I didn't. I had so we did it in the beginning of the week. It was like an 8-day retreat, and then it was just like bam, 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 first 3 days.
you drank all the first 3 days?
Well, so combo. on
Mhm.
Sunday, and then 2 ayahuasca ceremonies, and then we were done. So
Mhm.
it was the first 3 days, and then we had the rest of the retreat to kind of just be in nature, which is
Mhm.
great.
That's rad, yeah.
Yeah, so for, like, 4 days, we were in Costa Rica
Mhm.
jungles. So that was great, but it's only, like, 4 days. There's
Right.
a lot to process,
Mhm.
and
And
s
you're around a bunch of new people, which is a great way to integrate, but also a great way to distract yourself
yeah,
or be,
yeah,
excited on life and
right.
doing other stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, so coming back, I did embody different practices and read appropriate books. One was Joe Dispenza's Becoming Supernatural and stuff like
Mhm.
that. But I'm working a 9 to 5.
Mhm.
I've, been very social and doing this, and
Yep.
so it's busy. Like, my analytical mind, or at least, yeah, my brain is in motion a lot.
Yeah.
So, I was
Mhm.
wondering how you integrated it.
Yeah. It's to go back to the point I made before of
We just push this in a little bit just
yeah,
so
a
we
little
can capture
closer.
your voice a little bit.
Yeah,
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 there we
better.
go. Yeah.
Um, Before mentioning how crucial it is just to take time for yourself and I think that the more time you spend alone, ideally, and when I say alone, I mean without a screen. Like
Right.
these
Yes.
days, it's harder than ever to
Yeah.
actually connect with yourself and to build a relationship with yourself and find that real quiet setting to go in or to you could think about it so many ways to let things float up to
Yeah.
whatever,
Mhm.
and that voice. I think there's like a voice inside of us all that's talking to us and it's talking to us throughout the day.
There's one quote real quick.
Mhm.
It's super quick
Yeah.
quote. It's when you're sitting still, just observing yourself and your thoughts, and you're in that kind of setting
Mhm.
that you're describing,
Yeah.
you you certain desires float up that are in tune with your soul. But
Mhm.
if you're constantly busy, a lot of those desires are in tune with your ego.
Yeah.
I've heard that quote, and I
Mhm.
think I agree with that.
Yeah.
That's what I've experienced is yeah, whenever I'm meditating for an hour,
Mhm.
doing breath work
Yep.
in nature,
Yep.
not doing anything,
Mhm.
you have certain voices that float up, and you're like,
Yeah.
"Huh,
It's so
I
simple.
need to do this more."
It's so funny how simple it is. Like, you just need to go and people are like, "Oh, yeah, like, sure," but
How do
you
I
actually
find
do it,
Yeah. How do I
then
find
it's
myself? Well, just go
yeah,
give yourself time to yourself.
just give your
Don't
exactly. And I
Yeah.
think a big part of it is, like, we that process of the process that's happening, what's happening is how I see it is you're digesting everything, like your reality. Everything you've
Mhm.
experienced is we're on overload right now with all the technology and all the stimulation. It's freaking way out
Yeah.
there from what we've ever experienced. And we're finally kind of digesting our reality and things are able to kind of settle in and the soul finally is like it's silent and then the soul can finally its whispers actually get heard or whatever,
Mm.
And I think if you can do it in nature, that, really helps
Mhm. Yeah.
because I think that's a big part of it. You don't have to do it in nature if you're in a city, but like just disconnect from everyone and the
Mhm.
screens and whatever, even if it's just an hour at a time. But if you can get into nature, that's massive. And the voice will just start talking. Maybe it takes longer if you're really disconnected to
Yeah.
yourself. It
Yeah.
it might be little blips, but just start listening and actually taking note of the thoughts and the voice and what it's saying. And if it's sometimes it's a lot of negativity, maybe it's about yourself and just start by questioning it. Like, is it true? Is that actually true?
Mm.
Where does that come from? Is that because someone told me that? Is that because my parents said this about me or about themselves and I took it as truth because I was highly programmable from my
Mhm.
whole childhood? Um, but I think it is really that simple. And I think to answer your question, that was I think for me just a big part of integration is
Mm.
I don't have a massive meditation practice right now, but I think meditation can be so many things. So I have a practice of just being with myself,
Mhm.
undistracted, and I
Your
think meditation can be so many
I was
things.
gonna say your life is a meditation.
Yeah, I think it's Camille. She like she coined it or has a sticker that's like "You are the
Yeah.
meditation," and I love
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
because you are the you
Mhm.
can meditate with anything and embody meditation and be present and with yourself in any activity. And that's a
Mm.
big part of why I love the things like surfing, and being on the ocean
Yeah.
or snowboarding or whatever it is. And you're so in the moment and you're so with yourself and focused and you're in
Yeah.
whatever the flow state is, the meditation and but yeah, I don't think you can argue at all these things. Being in nature is so powerful with people, especially like go experience your life with your friends and get away from the screens and all the stuff you guys are normally doing or revolve around, but then also do it alone because
Mm.
that's really powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And just
Yeah.
see what comes up. It's
Yeah.
pretty interesting.
Journal. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Question your dreams. Dreams are a big one I've been really
Yeah.
nerding out on lately.
Oh, yeah.
Just like being like, whoa, it's become more clear to me all the dreams I have, where they're coming from in my subconscious and what they're telling me.
I had a dream of you last night.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So the dream was I was telling my buddy Ryan,
Mhm.
ATX, holistic RN.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it was like you were in the studio with me, but there was
Mhm.
two other gentlemen. And they were they were commenting on the side, and
Mhm.
the way the way that they were commenting was like disrespectful, and so I like had a lot of compassion to like and care. I was like I cared about it. So
Mhm.
to me, I woke up this morning. I was like, wow. And I was just trying to think about and evaluate that dream. I was like, I
Mhm.
think it's because I care and respect River, and I want to make sure that
Mm.
this goes well.
Right on, brother. Thanks.
So yeah, and I still remember it pretty clearly because some dreams they fade away pretty
Totally.
as soon as you get up and start doing stuff.
Sure.
But I did have some pretty vivid dreams after ayahuasca.
Mm.
So I did make note of them and started to really just like ponder on them. And it's like for me, I haven't been diving into sleep as much. I've got this whoop, and I might actually ask you about this in a second.
Yeah.
I think it's very fitting too, because I just got an email from Camille Substack that was like, should you or should you not measure your macros? So that's gonna be, I'm gonna put you on the spot maybe on that.
Yeah.
But I do want to get more into sleep and try to try to optimize that.
Mhm.
Think intuitively I've been doing that. The Whoop gives you certain statistics, and
Yeah.
I've been playing around with it. But
Mhm.
dreams to me seem like it's your subconscious clearly talking to your conscious mind,
Mhm.
and you should listen to it. And maybe,
Yeah.
and like don't take it, as law. But
Totally.
yeah,
And it can be taken as so many things, right? The
yeah,
interpretation.
yeah, yeah. So, anyways, yeah, on the topic of measuring your macros, I have not been doing that.
Mhm.
I just started wearing this Whoop band a couple weeks ago,
Cool.
so it's the first time I've ever done it.
Mhm.
In regards to measuring, I just kind of listen. I listen to my body. If I
Mhm.
have too much sauna, I get out.
Yep.
If I did it 3 times a week, I'll ask myself and like kind of see if I need it. And there was a period of time where I was going into the sauna 5 days a week, and I was
Mhm.
doing the ice 2 to 3 times a week. And then with food, I'll just eat until I feel satiated. I try to eat a little bit slower. I'm getting better with that. So
Mhm.
it's all these like intuitive listening to your body.
Yeah.
That's the way that I think I want to continue to go. And I'm just trying this thing out.
Mhm.
Right. And it's showing me how much REM sleep I've gotten. I
Mhm.
wonder how accurate it is.
Sure.
That's like probably the only reason. And it tells me how much I've strained myself, my heart rate variability.
Mm.
That kind of stuff is cool.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm not entirely sure if it's beneficial because I I'm not attached to this. Like I don't. There were moments if in the past if I looked at how much sleep I got and it told me you did not get as much REM sleep all day, I'd be like, why didn't I get it? I'm gonna have a terrible day. But I don't do that now. Like
Uh,
it's not something that happens, right? Like my
yeah.
mindset isn't like that.
Yeah.
But I do see people at Squatch like very, very hooked to
Oh,
their
yeah.
metric device. And so I think I don't know, maybe I've already answered kind of what you would say, but
Yeah. The first thing that comes to mind is, yeah, it's a great tool.
yeah,
You can
like
use it for
everything.
good or bad. Yeah. Um, I think it has the potential to yeah, build a relationship with it to where you're too reliant on it and stuff.
Hmm.
Kind of is the
Yeah,
placebo thing. It's like, oh, I didn't sleep good. I feel like shit now. You know what I mean?
right.
It's like, do you feel like shit or do you just think you do?
this thing's telling me I feel like
Yeah,
shit.
or it's you slept great and you're like, "Oh, I have all this energy," and maybe if you hadn't worn it, you would have been like, "Oh, I'm a little groggy this morning." Who knows? I think as a rule of thumb, sleep in general is a great not just a feedback mechanism, but it's a great like indicator of so many things in your life. So if you're not sleeping well, maybe you're waking up a lot and you're lying in bed thinking, it's like you're not probably giving yourself enough space. You may be doing too
Mhm.
much, or
Mhm.
if it takes a while to go to sleep and you just can't stop laying there,
Yeah.
something's going on with your nervous system. Obviously, like something, who
Yeah.
knows what it is? We can find out, but it's a great indicator of like, okay, I'm not flourishing.
Mhm. Mhm.
You should be able to lay in bed, go to sleep, sleep really well, wake up feeling good. And
Yeah.
so it's a great opportunity to get that kind of feedback from your body and your psyche. And yeah, it's easy to rely on those things. I know I haven't used one of those, but I had the Aura Ring. I
Mm.
still have it technically. I've been wearing it a lot less, but I was really curious. I got it, I think I've had it 4 years ago, like a long time ago, and I was really curious about. I was like, I slept good.
Mhm.
I never had really issues sleeping, but I just wanted to know how good was I sleeping? What was the
Mhm.
score? You know what I mean? Whatever, like how much deep sleep. That'd be cool
Yeah.
to be able to look at it. And I did it, and I don't think it's that accurate. I mean, to an extent, like
Yeah.
it's for Aura. They had for so many years, I would average like 2.5 or 3 hours of deep sleep, which is really high, but my REM was always really low. Like it would give me, I never got that high of a score because I never got enough REM apparently,
Mm.
but I got more than enough deep. And then they had an update. They've had lots of updates, but they had an update not that long ago to where they, now I get way more REM and I get a lot less deep.
Mm.
Like kind of flopped almost, you know what I mean? So it's massive change, and
Mm.
they haven't like they're still showing both settings. They're like you can kind of toggle between because it's like a demo
Yeah.
of the new software, but it's like okay, this is a massive. So yeah, I think who knows how accurate it is. I think the main thing is it's a great feedback mechanism, and it is interesting. I like looking at the heart rate
Mm.
variability, the resting heart rate, the temperature, things like that. I don't think
Mhm.
it's crazy accurate, but at the same time, I think the main thing I've been working on with it is having it there, trying to wake up and, like, see how do I feel first, and be like, "Okay,
Right.
do I feel good?
Yep.
Do I feel energized? Am I recovered?" Um, and then looking at it out of curiosity
Mhm.
with a grain of salt or whatever, but not using it as a thing to, like, dictate how you feel.
I Yep. I
Mhm.
once again resonate with that. And uh, something that comes to mind when I was drinking excessively years ago, I had the Apple Watch. And
Mhm.
it would read your heart rate.
Mhm.
And dude, there was one morning I woke up and it just like informed me how low my heart, or I think it was low,
Mm.
how low it was or how high it was.
It was probably high. I think it could be either, but I think usually it's gonna be higher when you
Yeah.
have stuff your body's trying to figure
Yeah.
out.
And so anyways, it just showed me like your heart rate was bad,
Yeah.
not where it should be,
Yeah.
because of how much alcohol you had. And so
Mhm.
that was kind of a nice feedback,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah, some
aspect.
people need that confirmation of like, "Oh, this shit's bad for me."
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I haven't had alcohol in a long time. Kinda similar relationship to with you. Like I don't it hasn't fit in my life lately, but yeah, I think one drink would like dramatically change,
Hmm.
especially if it's at all close to when I'm going to sleep.
Yeah. It depends on
Dramatically
the,
change the score.
yeah, it depends on the alcohol as well.
Totally.
Um,
One thing that comes to mind too, you mentioned, I just want to touch on with the sauna and like kind of trying to decide like
mhm.
how many times, listening to your body and I think it's a really beautiful part about that I enjoy about being a man and being like in that masculine mindset of very logical and rational is I like to think about like what's logically the smartest thing here. Like why am I sauning? Like why am I going in the
Yeah.
sauna? What's the intention?
Mm.
What's the goal? Like it could be anything. There's no wrong answer. It could be because it's meditative or it could
Yeah.
be relaxing or it could be because I want to strengthen my immune system or I want to recover, whatever.
Yeah.
But like
Yeah.
having like, okay, why am I doing it? Like that's a self-inquiry practice in itself of like
Mhm.
connecting to that voice of like, what do you want?
Right.
Why am I choosing to spend my life in these minutes that I have? I could do anything. Why am I doing this
Mhm.
out of everything?
Mm.
And it makes it more intentional.
Mm.
And then does it make sense for my overall goal? Like, am I, is it gonna, it's gonna affect these things in my life. It's gonna affect my recovery, my, whatever. And so it's a very masculine place to be in, like, very rational and logical,
Mhm.
which I think, is, a big part of being a man. Women do it all the time too,
Mhm.
but it's like, being in that space of logic and it's a great way to practice that relationship with yourself, but also just becoming more intentional with your life, which overall
Yeah.
I think is a great thing.
Yeah. That was a big lesson that I learned, especially after the ayahuasca retreat, but also just over the course of having all these modalities enter my life. Originally, sauna for me was feeling better, my body feeling better, loosening up my body, improving my cardiovascular health. It
Yep.
seems that there's evidence it can help, according to Huberman. If you do it for up to 3 to 5 times per week, it lowers all cause mortality rate by 50 to 60%. And so it's interesting because I would have that in mind.
Mhm.
So logically, I'm like, yep, I got to do this
Yeah.
5 days a week.
Mhm.
And there's just some days it's like you shouldn't sauna today,
Right.
but you do it because it's like, oh, well, Huberman said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's like you can take certain logical facts but also listen to yourself, listen to
Yeah.
your body.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
And would he say that to me right now, knowing that I don't feel like doing it?
yeah, right.
You know what I mean? Like, to me, not just the audience, you
Yeah.
know?
Um, so I've got so much listed here.
Yeah, no worries. Let's do it.
Uh, Something that comes to mind, I had a conversation about my feet with Dave. He got into it a little bit.
Mm.
Um, it seems like you and Camille try to go barefoot as much as possible.
Mhm.
And some of my shoes I already know like are not optimal for the formation of my feet.
Mhm.
And I loved the posts where you showed a baby's foot and how it's like a triangle almost,
Mhm.
like a
Cool photo.
pyramid.
Yeah.
And so, man, I breaks my heart. My grandmother on my mom's side, her feet were so fucked up.
Mhm.
Um, like terrible arthritis. Her
Mm.
toes were totally bent out of shape.
Yeah.
And that's because, I mean, one, she was 90 something back in like 2004, 2014.
Mhm.
So she was born in 1930s ish. So high heels,
Yeah.
those type of shoes
Yep.
definitely do not help with the formation of just like the natural formation of your feet.
Totally.
Um, but what like really just, oh man, like makes me excited to hear, and not just to be like, yeah, not for the craving or desire for optimizing every single thing and like being the
Mhm.
best. It was interesting to hear like the shape of your foot affects the muscles around your legs and your
Mhm.
posture, and then the way that you think potential or like,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
could you dive a little bit into that?
Yeah, totally. Well, one, like you said, the shape of our feet is, as when we're born, naturally widest at the toes.
Mm,
So our shoes as a society are usually widest at the base of the toes or a little earlier than the toes, and then there's a taper
mm,
in. And when, we wear those enough, our foot shapes to that. It
mhm,
adapts. Our body's
yeah,
great at adapting, good or bad. And basically, I think it's 26 muscles in the foot, and they're all there for a reason. The foot can be really strong, but when our bones change shape and they're not in those lines splaying out to width, then as the bones come out of alignment, the muscles don't work like they're
mm.
designed to. They can't pull on the bones.
I think someone told me it's like if you kept your hand in a mitt like this
Mhm.
that was confined,
Yeah.
your hand would ultimately stay like that and form into that, and then all the
Yeah.
muscles around your hand wouldn't work as properly, and it wouldn't be
Totally.
as strong,
Yep.
and so like then you're not going to be able to like
Mhm.
utilize your hand. Okay, but people
Same
don't.
thing.
It's the same thing, but
Yeah.
people don't take that into account. Like we use our
No.
hands all the time
Totally.
for
And we do use our hands more than our feet. We're not exactly monkeys, but
yeah,
but our feet are what support us
yeah,
throughout life and, carry us through our whole journey. And
yeah.
so they are important. And and yeah, I think it's totally underrated and undervalued. I think the effect our feet have on the rest of our body upstream, the knees, the hips, the spine, the neck, everything. Um and then also, yeah, and we're just designed to be barefoot. A big part of it is when you have a synthetic sole on the bottom of your foot, you're disconnected from the earth and the electricity of the earth. And, when we're grounding, when our feet are connected to the earth, like we're designed to be all the time, technically, we're discharging negative
Hmm.
ions and taking up positive ions. And there's this kind of this,
Those hippies knew what they were doing, man. Just going barefoot all the
Yep.
time, earthing.
Totally,
Yeah.
totally, yeah, and it's pretty cool. There's actually it seems super hippy dippy, but there's a ton of science behind it. There's actually a
No,
documentary. I
yeah.
think it's called The Earthing Movie.
Mm,
It's on YouTube for free. Watch it.
yeah.
It's amazing.
No, I try to make it a point to actually put my bare foot, like, in the soil and
Yep,
in the grass because of that
totally.
relationship between what you're saying.
Yep,
I'm not bashing the hippies. I'm praising them, you
totally,
know?
yeah. No, but it's for a long time, I spent a lot of time barefoot. I grew up in nature and spent a lot of time barefoot and running around river rocks in Hawaii Reef,
Mhm,
and, love it, but at the same time, before I really dove into the science, I was like, "Oh, it is kinda some hippy dippy stuff." Like, I
mhm.
consider myself kind of a hippie, but it's still like, "Oh, yeah, whatever," like, earthing, like,
Yeah,
and then you, but yeah, the science is pretty wild, and it just makes sense. The more I
yeah.
learn about health and wellness, the more I realize that so much of it is just going back to being more connected with nature and everything works itself out.
Primal.
Yeah. I
That's
think, yeah, apparently, so my friend Robbie, he's a neurotraining practitioner. He's super wise. And he was telling me about if you were earthed for long enough, like if you were connected to the earth all day and slept on the earth, because even if you sleep outside, you have a synthetic sleeping bag or pad
mhm,
usually. But
mhm.
if you were on something that conducted that electricity, within I think a few days, he said you would have like, you would get really sick because all these parasites and things would be trying to get out of you because they don't have that, all the stuff that's like kind of being, all the your body's changing. Our body's, like, a lot different than it would be inside the
Mhm,
environment,
mhm.
the electromagnetics that we frequencies and things that kind of harbor things, and there's parasites that we need there that are good, but
Mhm.
or there would be things trying to get out very fast
Mm.
if we were just connected to the earth for, like, 3 or 4 days straight because there's it's not disrupted by all these things that are unnatural to our world.
Oh,
So we're living in
wow.
a very different world than tribes who are connected to the earth all the time, and
Mhm.
it's a different internal thing going on.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah, it's a mind fuck.
Damn. I thought you were gonna say because you're ground if you're sleeping on the ground for 3 or 4 days, parasites are coming into you,
Yeah, right?
or, like, the just all the bacteria and different
Yeah.
but it's the opposite?
And there might be some in and out, some are good. So we need some things
Yeah.
we're an ecosystem, and when we're sick, we attract more of the bad. That's kind of how it works. And when we're vibrant, it's conducive and
Mm,
everything's working. But, yeah.
interesting. Yeah, I wanna buy a pair of, those Vibrams,
Yeah. Those
and,
are those are great.
I only knew so I thought Vibram was just a disc golf company. 'Cause
Do they make disc golfs too?
yeah,
Oh, cool.
I play disc golf, so I had a couple putters that were
Okay.
specifically for Vibram because I liked the material,
Mm.
and then I saw, oh, they make shoes
Yeah.
as well.
Same brand.
Yeah,
That's funny. They make a sole for a lot of shoes too, like boots and different things.
okay.
They're not all barefoot friendly shoes, I think, but they make a lot of grippy type soles for different outdoor shoes. But, yeah, those are great. They're really great for realigning the toes and
Mm,
they're definitely the best if you can't be barefoot in terms of function. But also, I don't think they make any that let you ground
mm,
technically,
yeah.
like Earth Runners. Are you familiar with those sandals? A
No.
lot of people around the gym wear them. They look like Jesus sandals, but
Oh,
they're
yeah.
not Birkenstocks,
Yeah.
and, those technically are grounded because they have a copper wire, so you can ground things to the earth
Mm.
through certain things like copper,
Oh, wow.
and so you can wear those shoes, and if you're on soil or the real earth, you'll actually technically be
Oh,
conducting and grounded.
that's cool.
Yeah.
Damn. I
Mhm.
wanted to find those.
Yeah.
Um, cool, man. So, um, let's see
Did
here.
you wanna touch on the macros too? We kinda skipped over that.
Sure. Yeah.
We can briefly if you want.
Yeah. Yeah. We kind of got into the Whoop
Mhm.
band, but yeah, I have not done too much investigating, and even just like even my basic knowledge on the macros,
Mhm.
isn't really. I mean, I understand it's protein, carbs, fats,
Yep.
and those are the three.
Yeah, those are the 3, yep.
And then you've got obviously vitamins and minerals, and then
Mhm.
electrolytes. Is that
Yeah, it's kinda like the macros are the big ones, how I see it, and they're the macronutrient, and the micronutrients are, like, all the smaller
vitamins
ones
and
that
minerals?
are yep,
Okay.
exactly, super important, but the macros are more important in terms of, like, the ratio mattering,
Mm,
like, how much of each you're getting, 'cause every food we eat is one of those 3 or multiple of the 3.
Yeah.
But, um, yeah, it's a big topic in the in the fitness kind of industry
Mhm.
because it's a big part of like, "Oh, are you trying to, like, build muscle? Do this. If you're trying to lose weight, then do this." And there's all these protocols and different things. But, I think it's really easy to get into kind of an unhealthy relationship with food if you're super aggro about, like, everything needs to be tracked and
That's the
everything needs to be
yeah,
obsessive.
going back to that. I just
Yes.
I could find myself doing that a lot.
Mhm.
But if
Yeah.
I'm tracking it on a daily basis,
Yeah.
I could just it's just top of mind.
Yeah.
It's conceptualized
Yep.
more and more.
Sure.
Whereas, like, if you just eat slow and
Mhm.
you incorporate the right foods, you're just intuitively then
Totally.
yeah, I don't know.
I think that's a big part of it, and I would actually not recommend tracking long term to anyone. I think it's just not really ideal. It's not a good
Yeah,
way to live. Like you said, it's nice to be intuitive and just listen to your body and just live your life too and just eat what especially when you can deepen the relationship with your body, you know what macros you need
yeah,
in a given moment or for to a pretty good extent.
yeah.
But I do think there is value in 2 things. One, being intentional about why am I eating certain foods? What is it doing for me? Because certain macros are better for certain
Mm,
activities, you know what I mean? And I can get into that. But then also, um, am I actually eating what I think I'm eating? Because it's really easy to, if you do have that intention, I've found to be like, I have a pretty good idea of what macros I'm eating. And then you go to track, it can actually be like, for example, I don't really track ever. And every once in a while, I'll track for a couple days
mhm,
just to get an insight of like what I'm eating
mm,
in terms of macronutrients because um, we eat a lot of meat and Camille and I are not scared of fat.
mhm.
We eat a lot of fat
Yeah,
and we realized recently we're actually eating more fat than we thought we were eating
mm,
and a little bit less protein and carbs. Not the biggest deal. And it's for her, it's different. We have different goals in mind,
mhm,
both her and I. But the point I'm making is I do think there's a value in tracking for a short period of time, just so you can get an idea and kind of remind yourself of like, oh, this food is actually that much this. And it also there's no right or wrong perfect formula for anyone.
mhm.
And so it's like anyone kind of talking about that, I would kind of question.
Yeah,
But for example, fat, I find my brain will actually function a lot better on. So
mm,
where carbs are super important if you're exercising a lot
mm.
and you're especially if you're trying to build muscle and things like that,
Yeah, yeah,
then proteins, of course, really important, but carbs are also really important.
yeah.
But carbs, for me personally, I found are not as ideal as fat in terms of fuel for my brain.
Mm,
So protein is actually not really a fuel for energy. Your body can use protein as energy if it needs to. Like it's not a good outcome. It's like kind of like
mm.
emergency cases when you don't get carbs or fat. And
That's
carbs and fat are actually both fuel for your body to have energy.
okay, okay.
In carbs, the body burns quite fast, and it's really good for explosive type energy, like lifting weights and having strength. Whereas fat, you can you can run great on fat, but it's more of like ideal for kind of endurance type activity because you burn it so slow.
Mhm.
But I find personally my brain will function if I'm not exercising a lot. Maybe I'm working at the computer or doing something intensive. Um, or like for this podcast, I'd much rather be fueled up on some fat than
Yeah,
much carbs. I haven't
yeah.
really had any carbs today, just like I think a grapefruit.
Nice.
So yeah, it's having the intention of like what are my goals, what are my outcomes, or that I'm aiming for, what kind of balance do I want to have? And then just sometimes it's good to track just to be like, am I even actually doing what I
Yeah,
think I'm
yeah.
doing?
Yeah,
Because the packages, that's another thing. The packages of things can be totally wrong,
yeah.
especially for meat. That's a tricky one
Uh,
in terms of fat to protein and
okay.
whatnot.
Yeah, I'm not measuring that at all,
Yeah.
and I'm having a lot of meat. Yeah, it's kinda counterintuitive to what I thought. I thought protein was, like, eat just that's the main macro, or
Mm-hmm.
that's top of mind.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I do recall Tim Ferriss saying, like, putting some coconut oil into your coffee and having that
Mm-hmm.
those fats.
Yep. I always do fat with caffeine personally, and I
Mm,
find I feel like the energy and the spike of stimulation from the caffeine is a lot more balanced and lasts longer and is not
yeah.
as like
Mm.
without without fat.
Yeah, I've been doing just cup of black coffee, a little bit of milk,
Mhm.
just like low. So it's not raw milk. I sometimes do raw milk though.
Mhm.
A little bit of butter, and then a tiny bit of shilajit,
Mhm. Yeah.
and then an egg.
Raw egg
Yeah,
coffee.
I
Nice.
just swindle that thing up. You think
Nice.
that's a good combo?
I haven't
The egg?
actually had a coffee,
Just
surprisingly.
one
But yeah,
to get a little bit of protein and some fats,
mhm. Yeah, I think that's a good sounds like a good combo, yeah.
and you don't taste it like it's just like a regular cup
Mhm.
of coffee.
Yeah. No, I think I'm picturing it, it sounds like it would taste
That's
really
Yeah,
good.
try it out.
Yeah, I like adding a raw egg into random things, but, yeah, I think it's great, man. I think with anything, even the macros, like, and all the stuff, the thing that overrides it all is that relationship to yourself and, like,
Mhm.
how do you feel? You know, it's like I said, think people can have issues with certain foods for a multitude of different reasons, and any food technically that you eat every single day, you're really it's really likely you could develop some kind of allergy to it. Because from my understanding, an allergy is a negative or wrong association to something. So, for
Mm,
example, if you ate a banana every day for breakfast growing up or with breakfast,
mm.
maybe your breakfast kind of varied, but you always had a banana. And some days, you know, it was chaotic in the house. Your mom would be yelling at you that you're late for school or you're doing something wrong or whatever it is. You know, we have this reaction to that and it becomes associated with banana because we have the banana every day.
Mm.
And then eating a banana can actually cause some kind of reaction. And technically, we're becoming allergic to the banana,
Whoa.
which isn't forever. We can change our association to
Wait, wait,
things.
wait, wait. So alright, in the example that you just gave, the mother shouting at
Mm-hmm.
the child
It's causing a stress response to the
to
child,
the
and it became
child
associated with the
with the
banana
banana.
because the banana was always there.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay, so that makes more sense what Allison
Yep.
said to me in my email. I'm gonna forward you the
Yeah,
email.
yeah. Well, I'll check it out.
Whoa.
Mhm.
Phew.
Yeah, it's crazy.
'Cause my parents were like, "Shane, get a few EpiPens as soon as possible," and I don't blame them because it was
Oh,
so
after your thing,
after
yeah.
my thing because it was so bad that and it was happening so fast as I was driving. I
Mm.
didn't have any stupid, but I didn't have any over the counter stuff at my apartment.
But why would you? You don't really.
Yeah, I don't get allergies.
Yeah.
But so I went to CVS and I like was looking at myself in my camera. I was like, "Oh my god, I look like Igor." And this woman, so I went to CVS, forgot my credit card. So I didn't bring my credit card. So I didn't have my wallet on me. And then I went into the CVS and I was like, I have my credit card number on my phone. I don't have the virtual card, but I have all the information.
Yeah.
Can you plug it in? She said, no. Looking at me, I'm like, dude, I'm going to die, maybe die.
You just thought you were a homeless person?
No,
I'm
I
just
mean,
kidding.
well,
I'm just fucking with
I mean,
you.
I kind of looked like a crazy person.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be, and it's I guess store policy. They couldn't help me. And I was like, well, CVS is like in the business of, well, I mean, this could be controversial, but trying to help people, right?
Yeah,
And like, I'm about to
yeah.
potentially fucking die. You know,
Actually
like,
hilarious.
like you're in the business of helping
Yeah.
people and I'm about to
Are
die.
you
We
talking about,
can't do
like,
it.
vaccinations?
Yeah. I
Right,
mean,
yeah, and helping people, right? Like, they're
right.
really on board about, you know.
Yeah, dude.
No, that's hilarious.
Yeah. Um, so anyways, where was I going with that? Oh yeah, so my parents wanted me to get EpiPens, and I've thought about getting that. I have Allegra, which has a lot of antihistamines and whatnot, and um, uh, but this relationship between the subconscious mind and certain foods that you have is very like that kind of clicked with me,
Mhm.
and so that yeah, I might continue to follow up with Allison.
Yeah,
And I'll forward my email, but
yeah.
wow, that's so my so my
Mhm.
and whenever I try to tell people, because this seems like extremely woo woo.
Oh, yeah, dude.
Because whenever I try to tell people,
Yeah,
like
it's
they're
hard to talk about.
all of that, the majority, the average individual thinks you should get an over the counter antihistamine,
Mhm.
Benadryl, whatever it may be,
Yeah,
right?
we're
And then
programmed.
right, and then all of a sudden, I mentioned, well, I'm doing some neurological training to deal with this in the
Mhm.
long term, and they're
Yep.
like, "You're out of your mind." Like,
You're gonna die.
it's like, yeah, you're fucking crazy, and it's like,
Mhm.
well, actually, information is constantly evolving,
Yeah.
and we are learning more about how we can
Mhm.
do things in the long term, and I'm all for that. That's like, longevity is my goal,
Mhm.
and so that's a good way to enter into this conversation, you had a post
Mhm.
that talks about, um, you said if you want to live long, strength training, mobility, I think it was like you kept it simple. Obviously, there's a
Yeah,
couple other
if you're
things.
going for longevity,
Yeah, strength training,
health into longevity, then lift weights
lift
and
weights,
stretch your body.
stretch your
Yeah,
body, and then
always.
avoid consistent, long distance running.
Mm,
And I think a lot of people, I can think of a couple people in mind that would be heartbroken over that. But
yeah.
uh, I don't run as much anymore. It's strength training. I'll do some cardio, sauna. I do mobility. Need to get better at that. But I used to do running when I was in a really painful,
Mm,
like a really painful part of my life. When
mhm.
it became a lot more painful, I would just run
Mm,
to get out of my mind.
mentally painful, you mean?
Yeah, mentally and
Yeah,
emotionally. Yeah,
emotionally, yeah,
yeah.
not
Yeah, so
physically.
there would be times where I'd run way longer than I would typically want to. Like
Mhm.
right now, I'll run 2 miles and I'm like, I'm good.
Yeah.
That's enough. But
Mm,
I would do like 8
right.
miles.
As an expression of emotion.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I feel like at the time, at that specific time, I wasn't really exercising in general. I was on my feet a lot because I was a
Mm,
restaurant manager and I was working long hours, so I was like
mhm,
always on my feet, but and walking, doing a lot of steps. But so yeah, long distance running seems,
mhm,
I've got my buddy Jay, he does Ironmans,
mhm.
and he loves.
Yeah, I actually met Jay recently, I really like him, he
Oh,
seems
cool.
rad, yeah.
Yeah. Shout out
I'm
Jay.
bummed I met him right before I'm moving,
Yeah,
yeah,
dude, I'm
but
bummed that you guys are leaving,
yeah, I
just in
know.
general.
You guys are gonna have to come to Hawaii.
Yes, yes. I got a buddy, he works for the same company in the Bitcoin space as me, he's out there, and he's brought up, like, "You should come visit," so
Cool.
if it's in
Yeah.
the cards, if you guys are willing, that'd be
Mhm.
f yeah. But, yeah, so there's certain people that do Ironmans or very, very long marathons, like Cameron Haynes and
Yep.
certain other people have done like 100 miles, and
Yeah, it's awesome.
it's
It's
really
impressive.
inspirational.
Mhm.
But over time, and this also can tie in with your, your post that stated if you're in the gym, strength training longer than an hour, your
Mhm.
hormonal system, your your body's cortisol
Yep.
secretion
Mhm.
ramps up longer than it should, and then also your testosterone. So the relationship between your cortisol and
Mhm.
testosterone
Yeah.
is pushed into a not hyperdrive, but like to
Mm.
an extent that is not ideal.
Exactly, yeah. It's pretty interesting. I mean, it's one of those things I remember learning about when I was starting to study through the CHEK Institute more, and I was like, "Really? That's weird. I never, never would have guessed. Long distance running seems so healthy or
Yeah.
whatever." But especially because people did use it apparently for a means of hunting and survival
Yeah, yeah,
in
yeah.
the past, which is rad, and
We're on our
it's
feet all the time.
totally.
Yeah.
And I don't see it as like good or bad. Still, it's still one of those things of like, I think Cam Haines is fucking badass. I really look up to
Yeah,
him. He's
same.
awesome, and I don't think
Yeah.
like dumbass. Why is he running?
Yeah.
It's like that's killer. And I think it's cool, like of an self expression of like do whatever the fuck's calling you, and like do your thing, and do it well, do it
Yeah.
hard, and but yeah, I remember learning about that, and it's interesting because it looks really clear in the science, and obviously any study or thing, like, you have to take with a grain of salt and see who's funding the study and all that shit. That's a big part of the food
Yeah.
industry stuff, but,
And the power of belief too.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, and, but with this, it seems pretty consistent through a lot of information and studies and well known in the field, but still a lot of people ignore it.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, but the how the body reacts to exercise, I think it's actually better to do, like, multiple short bouts of exercise,
Mm.
especially when there's high intensity throughout your day. It's actually a lot better than working out
Mm.
for 1 hour really hard and then being sedentary, especially the rest of the
Yeah,
day.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, your cortisol, which is stress hormone, it's very correlated with, like, how stressed your body feels. It's a good way to think about it, mentally, physically, all of it. Um, has this nice spike when you exercise with high intensity, and it'll drop back down, which is good. It regulates, and we get this hormetic stress, which
Mm.
stress can be good. It makes you stronger. It can be healthy. The sauna, like I said, is stress. But after about that kind of 45 to really the 60-minute mark, it seems to just get to a point where it's too high, and it's too much on our body, too stressful, and it starts
Mm.
to affect hormones. Like testosterone is going to get that nice spike,
Mhm.
which makes sense. It's like your body is like, oh yeah, like we're going to be prepared to be stronger. We're going to give you testosterone. You're doing things that need strength, you know, and
Mhm.
then it's like, oh, you're doing it too long. Like, chill out, bro. Like
Yeah.
we need to stay alive, you know, like we don't want to expend too much energy. Who knows
Mhm.
why it is. But anyway, testosterone, growth hormone, really important for like their anabolic hormones. They're going to help you get stronger and rebuild and with strength as you break muscle down when you're working out. And those both go up, and then at a certain point, it's around the 60-minute mark, they start to go down.
Mhm.
And down's not good. That's bad for those things. And cortisol around that mark is going to be getting to a point where it just takes a lot longer to
Mm.
and it when it's up that high that long, when you're in fight or flight, your body's stressed and everything is less efficient and less optimal when your body's stressed for long periods of time. We are not designed to be stressed for long periods of time. As a
Mm.
general rule of thumb, we're designed to be stressed for short periods when we see a tiger and we need to run. We need everything to give us that extra strength and we
Mhm.
get away and then we recover and we relax. And we get into the rest and digest, which is where we really recover from exercise and consolidate information in our brain. And we do that when we're sleeping, we're resting and digesting, and we don't want to be stressed very much for very long periods of time. And yes, the same with running. Running is we're never going to get that high of a spike actually of the cortisol, but it goes up high enough and then it just stays up and
Mm.
it takes forever to come down for whatever reason. It's actually quite complex
Oh.
and confusing. But then that's one of the things. And then the other thing with the running is it's just not actually that great for your body in terms of it's a very repetitive motion that you're doing. Our bodies are designed to move in many different ways. There's three planes of movement. For an example, we have the frontal plane, which is yeah, we're kind of moving. It's like squatting, walking, running is all in the frontal plane. And then there's the transverse plane, which is kind of like top to bottom where we're kind of rotating around. And there's the sagittal plane, which is kind of like this the
Mm.
side to side movement. And when you're running long distances repetitively, you're just running, you're just moving in one plane. It's kind of like it's the same with cycling. Cycling is probably even worse than running, especially the people who do, they're tucked and they're like in kyphosis, like kind of
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
and you're just moving and your hips are just moving in one plane rather than rotating and moving and our body really is designed to rotate and it moves in spirals when we're running. Ideally, a big part of it is people don't have great running form. If you're a professional runner, if you're really, you know what I mean, your
Mhm.
your form's probably a lot better, but um it's that repetitive movement. It's just not ideal for the joints, especially when you're talking about like the general population, the people who are running and trying to do it for fitness. Running is a prime example of our programming. It's like we're running because we think it's healthy. It's like
Mhm.
this thing that's to be fit and to burn calories and but it's like, why are you running? Like besides all that, because maybe that's actually not true.
Mhm. Yeah.
Why are you running? Like, are you doing it because you actually enjoy it? Which is great if you do. And I think a lot of people do enjoy it. I think part of that could be they get hooked into the runner's high that you can
Mhm.
experience, which
Yeah.
I think is a whole nother topic of like, okay, what's your relationship to it? Are you doing it as an escape? Are you doing it to get this
Mm.
high?
Mm.
It's like it's a complicated topic, but in terms of the general population kind of running and wearing really cushioned shoes that are designed for running, and that enables you to strike your heel and your gait pattern changes, and you're actually putting a lot more force into your knees and your ankles, into your hips with every step, rather than when you're running with a thinner soled thing or barefoot or something like that. Then you're using the innate spring mechanism you
Mhm.
have that is your Achilles tendon, this
Yeah.
giant spring right here
Yeah.
that's designed to, for us to bounce
Yeah.
like we can as humans and yes, walking is actually great because it's especially you're moving your body, your movement is so important in so many ways. And sprinting is actually really great too because you can have that high intensity.
Mhm.
But there's a lot to say on this
No.
topic, but if you're really pushing it with endurance type running and you're doing long distances and you're doing it in a stage of cardiorespiratory activity, I think stage 2 is kind of the ideal stage to stay in, which most people don't unless they're in shape.
Yeah.
Then you're gonna be overstressing your hormones and you're gonna be huffing air out your nose,
Could
out your
o
mouth, just in your
yeah,
nose, and really kind of on that edge of like fatigue.
yeah. Could overstressing your hormones cause cardiovascular, issues by any
Mm-hmm.
chance?
Totally.
It could?
Yeah.
Okay, 'cause I just recently had an acquaintance talk about cardiovascular issues,
Mm-hmm.
and they love running. Love
Mm-hmm.
running. I think they get that runner's high.
Yeah.
Like, so their relation I don't know their relationship to it, but,
Is it a man?
no, it's a woman.
Okay, I was just curious because a lot of time men, that shows up in the heart stuff shows up in the
Yeah.
heart, lungs, maybe. But
Yeah, so, um, that's good feedback for me if I ever see her again to provide her with that. It's
mm,
like, "Hey,
mm-hmm.
this is something that you have a really strong you have a relationship to it in a way that really energizes you with positive emotions, but it
Mm-hmm.
might not be serving you in the hormonal system and the cardiovascular system, and so
It's great. Yeah.
if you can dig deep to, like, are you using it as an escape? Because if you are and you can kind of fix that relationship, then maybe you can find other things,
Mm-hmm.
and you can live
Yeah.
longer life."
Totally. And it really is that like cost benefit ratio that we all get to examine and then make a decision. And
Yeah.
like I said, like people who really go hard with the running, I think it's awesome. And I think it's just we all get to make that choice of what we want to do with our time, how we want to maybe damage our body out of joy, out of fitness, out of the art of inspiring people.
Mhm.
So there really is, I don't see it as like this right or wrong. It's just, are you being intentional with what you're doing with your
Mhm.
life? Are you doing it for the right reasons? If you're not, maybe examine that.
Yeah.
And there's so many things for your friend. It's like, are they overall pretty healthy?
I think so, yeah.
Then like that's how's their sleep? Like like for the stress, that's something that's going to affect your sleep. That's a big one.
Mhm.
And especially I forgot to mention this: the running and the high cortisol is almost especially important for women because of how stress affects their reproductive
Mm. Yeah.
all of its systems and processes. And there's all these things in your body that are kind of like that feedback mechanism. Like for a woman, it's like the menstrual cycle is a big one of like it's a report card almost that you get every month
Mhm.
of feedback of how you're doing with your body. Is your
Mhm.
body happy? Are you getting, are you having painful cramps where you can't even get out of bed or you can't move or you're, crazy grouchy every month for a couple days and then that's actually not how the body's designed to go through the mental,
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
it's and then that also brings up the topic of is your biological system that is the most important thing your body's designed to do being suppressed by a pharmaceutical
Yeah.
intervention of birth control and then
Mm.
everything gets suppressed and all
Yeah.
the feedback. So yeah, there's a the rabbit hole.
Oh, man. Yeah. There's so much. Like, once I got into Bitcoin and I went on Twitter,
Mm.
I learned so much about yeah, so many things that we incorporate into our lives that are bullshit, or that
Mhm.
they've been deemed as, like, this is the regular thing you do, like
Mhm.
birth control.
Yeah.
So you don't have to do that.
No.
You don't have to take that pill every day
Yeah,
or
seriously.
every, is it every day or
I think so.
oh, jeez.
There's so many forms of it too now, and they're coming up with a new one of like, "Oh, this one doesn't have those negative side effects, so this one's better."
Now you can put, like, you can shove something up there too and, like,
Yep.
I don't know. So,
Mhm.
shit, man. Yeah, there's so much that we've incorporated throughout the rise of the industrialization, the industrial, like, age,
Mhm.
and now that we have the information age, all these, snake oil salesman products are kinda like, "Hmm,
Mhm.
wow. I've been doing this my entire life." And yeah, like, even so ooh, this is a controversial one, I think. Sunscreen.
Mm.
You stated, in one of your posts,
Mhm.
you don't need it. That's super controversial.
Oh, yeah, man. That's a big one.
So, one thing that, I've heard, if you don't have seed oils,
Mhm.
like, if your nutrition plan
Mhm.
is very healthy
Yeah.
for a consistent amount of time,
Mhm.
you're a very healthy person locked to your circadian rhythm in a, like, an efficient way,
Mhm.
and you're exposing yourself to vitamin D, to the sun's rays
Mhm.
for an adequate amount of time on a daily basis, like, I mean, it's kind of like what is it, the melanin in
Mhm.
our skin,
Yep.
like, that's why people that are from Africa, like, their skin is so dark, like, we adapt,
Yep.
and so It's like, yeah. Uh, there's also, like, the topic of sunscreen having, like, really harmful things in them
Mhm.
that cause cancer, and
Yeah,
so
yeah.
what's your take on sunscreen, if you don't
Yeah,
mind
yeah.
getting into that?
Not at all. Yeah, it's a big one. There's a few different things. One would be there's so many factors, like you said, you mentioned the seed oils. There are quite a few factors that I'm aware of that affect how your body reacts to the sun. Um, Hydration is one of them,
Mhm,
which I think we're all pretty chronically dehydrated, probably as a society. And your diet. I'm I can't restate too much science behind the diet stuff. I know it exists. I just don't shove that in and keep room for that stuff because to me, I can always go find. I'll send you some stuff.
sure.
There's a good couple tweet threads that you can put in the show notes if you do that, of
Yeah, yeah,
something that
yeah.
go dive deep into the science behind how the compounds and the ingredients and things you're consuming affect how your body reacts to the sun. A big one is, like you said, the circadian rhythm and how dialed that is into you. And also, one thing I've learned about more recently is viewing the sun and being exposed to the sun before midday sun, more morning time sun, and then evening sun after the midday sun. Both are going to affect how your body reacts to the sun you were exposed to throughout the day. So it's almost like when you're and we're just it goes back, we're designed to be outside all the time. When we're inside all day, eating unnatural foods, and then we go outside and you're gonna get burnt. You know what I mean? It's like
Mhm,
your body's just it's so foreign to you. It's like you're so fragile and whatnot. But anyway, when you're exposed to the sun earlier in the day, your body's literally like preparing. It like gets ready for the
mhm,
sun midday. And then same thing in the evening sun, your body's like repairing itself better when you're exposed to evening sun. And I do think that the sun is it's a stress technically. It's one of those things that like in the right amount is medicine and is so important. We need it in so many ways. But if you're exposed to too much sun, you can damage your body. You can burn. Um, and I think for me, I value the sun so much and I understand what role it plays. And so much of my life revolves around being in the sun as much as I can. But at the same time, um, if I've had too much, I get out of the sun or I go into the shade. You know what
mhm,
I mean? There's
mhm,
multiple ways to get out of the sun, or you can cover up is what I'll do is
mhm,
I'll cover my body if I do need to be in the sun. And if I'm doing something where I can't, like that's my sunscreen. It's a shade. It's a shield. You know what I mean? And I'd much rather do that. It makes so much more sense than put on a toxic substance that absorbs into my skin. Yeah, I can't even imagine.
yeah,
But at the same time, like sometimes you can't cover up. Like when I'm surfing, it's in Hawaii. I don't want to wear wetsuit. Sometimes I don't want to cover up all the parts of my body, and I want to be in the sun to enjoy my life and do the things I want to do. So I will wear sunscreen. I'll use one that's based with like a zinc oxide, and it's made out of natural materials. There's one I really like that uses something from like a tree bark that apparently like native tribes used to use
mm,
that protects from the sun. So it's that mixed with zinc oxide and some other things, and it's edible. Like you could straight eat. Tastes
mm,
kind of good, has cinnamon in it. And I'll put that on maybe my nose or like my lips if I'm gonna be
yeah.
out in the sun surfing for a long time. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff. The hydration's a big one.
Well, one thing you noted was if you can't eat it, don't put it on your skin.
Yeah, yeah, that's it.
I've never thought of it that way.
Mhm. Yeah,
That's
so
cool.
so we're when we eat stuff, we're obviously putting it into our body, absorbing it through our intestines and our guts, and but when we put things on our skin, we absorb them. We do. It's
Mhm,
like it's getting into our body. It may be at a smaller rate, but I think it's a great rule to go by of don't put things on your skin that you wouldn't want to eat. And I think
mhm.
it applies to water as well when you're showering. Probably one of the biggest issues in terms of I mean, one, a lot of people still drink a lot of tap water here in Austin. The tap water is no bueno.
Yeah.
So just taking a shower, you're getting dosed with
I was
chlorine.
just talking to Ryan about this,
Mhm.
and on the last podcast, and he
Mhm.
was saying you should get a shower
Filter.
filter.
Yep.
I use a Berkey filter
Mhm.
for drinking,
Mhm.
but I'm not entirely sure how I feel about drinking that.
The Bricky?
Yeah, I mean, it
Mm,
does work. It seems like
I
it
feel you.
works.
I'm the same way. Yeah,
Yeah.
we have one. We're actually yeah, we just got rid of ours actually because 'cause we're moving.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And normally I'd get another one or figure out some other system, but I think we might actually try something else because I have heard that I think they've done some studies where it didn't look like it was filtering as much as it was supposed to be,
Mhm.
which I was not that surprised, but also kind of annoyed of like
Yeah.
they have all the third party. I had went through the homework of like getting the third party
Yeah,
like
oh,
reviews of whatever, and being
yeah.
like, okay, this is actually solid. But the shower filter is big, especially because it's your pores open up. If you're taking a warm shower, your
Mhm.
pores literally open up and they're just sucking stuff into your body. And the chlorine, depending on where you live, the chlorine here in a city usually is high chlorine rate. And
Damn.
so we're just absorbing that stuff. So yeah, we have a shower filter and um yeah, just replace it often and just be careful
Yeah.
what you're consuming. And I mean a big one, just stop drinking tap water. Like we got an awesome community here of gym goers. Everyone's super
Yeah.
healthy and pretty vibrant here, but like a lot of people drink out
Drinking
of
out of the
the
bubbler.
water yeah, out of
Yeah.
the thing there, and, like, shit, I wouldn't touch
Yeah. I
that.
I did it a few times,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
it's
no judgment, but it's just like,
no, but
I don't
now
think
I
people
don't.
realize
Yeah.
that
I can taste
the
it.
shit that's in the
Yeah.
water too, the pharmaceuticals, birth control, all that's in the water. They can't get that out of water when they treat it.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, so they treat it with chlorine, that's on purpose, which is not good for us, and they add some fluoride, which is not good for us, but then also things that are water soluble, like pharmaceuticals, SSRIs, birth control, all this
Oh
hormone
my
disruptors
god.
get flushed down the toilet, people pee their stuff out, and then it's in the
Oh.
water, and we can treat it to clean the water, but that stuff that's water soluble never comes out.
Oh my god.
So you get dosed with
So
tap
you've been
water.
using the Berkey filter?
Yeah, the Berkey filter, yep, for a couple years maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, but still, yeah, time, ready to upgrade and
Shit.
I think that does enough. But yeah, I think RO is a great system, a good standard. If I was living in a house reverse osmosis where I knew I wasn't going to be leaving anytime soon,
Okay.
then getting it for the
Yeah.
under the sink for the tap or whatever, you still do need to remineralize your water is a big
Yeah.
topic.
I've got that.
Hydration,
Yeah,
yeah.
I've got that.
Mhm.
I had a buddy recommend
Cool.
this, yeah, some putting minerals into it.
Salt's a great one for the listeners if you don't
Yeah.
know. I just add a little bit of sea salt to your water.
Yeah.
Makes all the difference, especially in the Texas heat.
Oh, dude. 100 degrees every day for a
Mhm.
couple months.
Yeah.
Shit, man. You had a post that I actually cited.
Mm.
I released a Substack on my ayahuasca retreat,
Oh, cool.
and I cited your post, and it was the one um, about authenticity,
Mm.
and there's like a waterfall there.
Mhm.
And I'm just gonna, if you don't mind me,
Yeah, yeah.
attraction and authenticity. If you are presenting a version of yourself that doesn't reflect how you truly feel inside, you will naturally attract the wrong people and opportunities into your life. You won't develop healthy, fulfilling relationships because these people aren't even aware of who you really are. And you'll attract opportunities that leave you feeling empty and disconnected. Not being authentic becomes painful. It forces you to wear a mask and hide your true self from the world. This inner conflict manifests physically in the form of all sorts of health issues: anxiety, depression, cancer, you name it. By speaking our truth and openly expressing our genuine thoughts and emotions, we create space to find the people we are truly meant to connect with. When we live from the heart, everything begins to fall into place. And from that place of inner harmony, our health improves. Mic drop. I bookmarked that post. I read it after my retreat.
Mm.
But even prior to this whole ayahuasca experience, I've definitely felt here in Austin like there is some harmony within the community that I'm interacting with. But what I think is amazing, kind of like woo woo or mystical for some Americans, is that your ability to not be yourself, who you are authentically,
Mhm.
speaking from an authentic perspective, what's on your mind from your heart, you can actually create physical ailments.
Mhm.
And that's kind of mind blowing. And a lot of people might think that's insane to think about.
Mhm.
But I absolutely, I've embodied that. I've had, um, I mean, I've had like just anxiety or depression, like that's more chronic in the past. And in order to to relieve that, I had alcohol, or I didn't. Yeah, I mean, just like, let's say alcohol wasn't even in the scenario. It's just like you because of your own framework and perspective, your yeah, your thoughts and your concepts and your beliefs are so negative, or they at least put you into a state of mind and being that overdrives your hormones. So
Mhm.
that then might cause other systems of your system. I like how you framed that too.
Mm.
Like your body is a system of systems. Like you're compromising other systems, your hormonal system maybe, or whatever, because your emotional or mental system is off.
Yep.
And so the fact that if you are living a life that you know deep down is not authentic,
Mm.
you're going down the regular route of being a doctor because your family told you it's we've been doctors for 3 lineages or three generations, or a pre-programmed lifestyle that, has been in place because of, or due to the industrial revolution and American way of life. Like, yeah, I mean, it's that really hit me hard. And I'm very thankful that you put that too, because yeah, it was a great way to to incorporate what I was trying to express in
Mm.
my article.
Mhm.
But how have you or have you found moments in your life, and I think you already said you this was the case at some point, where you felt like you were inauthentic, and I think plant medicine helped you
Mhm.
put a scope on that.
Mhm.
How is that? Could you like maybe describe a little bit of that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, sure. I think, and one thing too, just that came to mind that I'll touch on real quick is, a big part, it just feels needed to say, like, a big part of that process of finding that authenticity, which it's sometimes easier said than done, um, is it starts with, like, creating that space with yourself and
Hmm.
finding the voice and opening up space for the voice to come up because that voice is the truth. And also, a massive part of it is, like, being able to discern and separate what do I want to do? What is that voice telling me versus the thing you're doing or maybe that you're considering doing that isn't actually you, being a
Hmm.
doctor or whatever that is that isn't. So, like, that separation and that clarity, I think, is a big part of it. And, yeah, for me, I think.
There's one. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
There's I subscribe to Camille. I
Mhm.
want to listen and read more, but I haven't had the chance. But there was one
Mhm.
that was discussing your move to Hawaii. And he
Mm,
talked about how surfing, the
mhm.
meaninglessness of surfing
Yeah.
allowed you to play
Mhm.
and allowed you to not just to identify at, I think, a young age that you didn't want to go along with the pre-programmed package,
Sure.
right? So it
Yep.
seems like at a younger age,
Mhm.
you didn't wanna you wanted to be yourself, or you wanted to
Yeah,
follow a path that felt in tune with yourself, but if there
totally.
was, like, a moment where you still found yourself, like, doing something that was told
Mhm.
from someone else to do.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think, well, yeah, the moment you're talking about, I think that I spoke on was, yeah, being in Hawaii as a for the first time, or maybe not the first time, but yeah, really reconnecting with the ocean in general and the meaningless play that it supports. Especially, I don't know if you've ever, maybe you got to do this in Costa Rica, but like playing in the ocean when the water's warm and the waves are kind of wild, and you're just along for the ride.
Mhm,
Like you're really just playing, and the waves can wash you up and down and tumble you, and you can dive under them and splash around, and it's just so fun and meaningless and playful and childish. Really, it feels like you're a little kid again,
mhm,
and I don't think, like, sometimes it's like, "Oh, yeah, it felt like I was a little kid," and then it wears off. It's like, for the ocean, I don't think it really wears off that much. Like, I've played it a lot, and it seems like that's, like, tapping into the fountain of youth. Like,
yeah,
it's just that play, and I remember a specific moment of just thinking, because when you become an adult and you start to forge your path, there's so many things that you're considering and all these things. You're trying to be mature, you're trying to do the right thing, you're trying to, like, develop and be an adult now, not a kid. You're trying to and make your parents proud. Like, there's so many things, but
mhm,
then really realizing, like, I was beginning to get more caught up in that stuff and starting to believe the programming that, like, you need to take life more seriously and you need to do these things and they're more important and that this other thing is kind of like good, but it's not as important. it's this playfulness and meaningless childish play, whatnot, is something to do with just a little bit of free time, rather than really try to make it a part of your
Mhm.
life of finding that. And I remember being grateful that I realized that, and realizing like I almost didn't realize it. Maybe I would have later, but I almost like started down that path where I was gonna get further away from this
Mm.
thing, and realizing that like, no, like this is true. Like this is my truth. This is good. This is not bad. This is important. And it doesn't matter what anyone says. It's really just like your relationship with yourself and what it does for you. And I also noticed it within my transition from doing body work into figuring out where and what I was going to study. There was a gap where I was doing some work. Um, it was a sales job,
Mm.
and it was great because I'd never done sales. And a friend kind of like was like, "Oh yeah, I have this position you could kind of do." It was a seasonal thing. It was not super full time, but it was really lucrative. And I'd never done sales, but it was like you'd probably be good, and I was. I ended up being good, and it was interesting because it was very enveloping. It was a commission-based job, so it was not there wasn't much security in it, but it was like the roof was really high for,
Mhm.
like, what you could do with it,
Mm.
and I remember being stimulated by it and liking it to an extent, and it was very challenging. It was extremely challenging in a mental battle because of there's no certainty of any income,
Mhm. Yeah.
and, but then eventually, I remember realizing over the time I was doing that job, realizing that was the time it took me to realize what my next step was. And then as soon as was somewhat certain of the direction I was ready to go, which was a long period of like it slowly becoming more certain to
Mhm.
me, that whole time was I was living outside of alignment and I was starting to realize it. And the more I connected with myself and the more got to know myself, the more clear it became to where I
Mm.
literally the job kept becoming more and more lucrative the longer I was there and whatnot. And eventually, I just no matter the number, I just had to kind of like step away because
Mhm.
it just didn't matter, and it was
Mm.
confusing to a lot of people. And I was very clear in my mind at the time, even though hindsight's 2020. In the moment, I was still pretty clear of thinking, yeah, it's like once all the people I was working with, I'm like, and they liked the job too. I was like, yeah, if I was in their position, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing next or
Mhm.
what mattered to me, what really mattered and what
Mm.
fired me up. If I didn't know about what that was for me, sure, I'd stay here, but that's not where I am.
Mm.
So I'm gonna go do that thing. And it was difficult, but it was so necessary and it's yeah, it just became bigger and bigger until you can't ignore it,
Mhm. Yeah.
which is interesting. And I think one more thing to touch on actually that came to mind is not only I think does it affect you in that physical way and can create this illness and whatever, I think a big part of it is people don't they just keep numbing the voice. Like that voice is always there waiting for you if you just stop using whatever vices and things you have to distract yourself and numb yourself, whether that's alcohol or whether it's social media or porn or Netflix, whatever, food. It can be so many different things, your vape, like all these things that kind of just keep you somewhat numbed and suppressing that voice and accepting your reality as it is. And I think that's a big part of what can create the illness is you ignore the voice long enough that you just keep adding more and more different vices
Mm.
that are just not good for you. And you just become so disconnected from yourself and disembodied that, yeah, your body's not going to react well in the
Mm.
long term.
Very well said. Um, I'd remark that you living and striving or stepping into that authentic realm, that path, taking that courageous, or for some people, it's not always courageous. They think it's just a natural way
Sure.
for them to go about their life, but it can be if you ignore the voice
Hmm.
for too long, and then you're like, okay, I don't want to ignore it anymore. Then it can get a little scary, and you need some courage. But I'd remark for you, correct me if I'm wrong, but it allowed being in this authentic pathway has allowed you to find uh, unconditional love,
Yeah,
communal.
totally.
You're like just observing and listening to both of you about your current relationship is it's amazing
Mm, thanks.
because you don't it's not as common.
For
So,
sure.
um to conclude, like that's essentially I was so happy to have you on to be able to talk through all of this, but to have you on before the two of you love birds sail away or drive away to Hawaii, and curious what your next steps are. What's, obviously living in harmony together, but
Mhm.
also, like, uh, for your knowledge within the holistic, approach, like, what
Mhm.
do you it looks like sometimes your posts together separately.
Mhm.
Sometimes you post together as, like, collaborators,
Sure,
but
sure.
then, like, you'll post separate things, but
Mhm.
they seem almost in sync with each other.
Mm.
So I wasn't sure if maybe you guys would start your own, like, holistic
Mm.
business together.
Mhm. Yeah, it's interesting. I've thought about that. It hasn't been something we've talked about too much, but I've had the reflection that, like, the we both have this different strength and
Mhm,
gift that I think together is pretty powerful.
mhm. Yeah.
Not only that, like, I think, um, her working with women directly, and I really enjoy working with men directly more, and I'm gonna go more in that direction, over time is also more powerful in itself, but just the different kind of similar mindset, but different, you know what I mean, combined.
Mhm,
So, yeah, we something that's been on my mind a lot basically since she introduced me to it is the neuro training. So I'm actually putting quite a bit of time into learning about
mhm,
what makes that up, and really excited to learn more about it.
mhm.
And that's really basically shattered my reality since finding out about how it works and my understanding of health and wellness and
Yeah.
how the body functions, and so much of this field can be like this kind of like guessing, this like kind of guessing game for a lot of practitioners of like trying to figure things out, whether it's like within the gut. A lot of things you
Mm,
can't see. It's like
mhm.
you have symptoms, and if the symptoms get better, it's like, oh yeah, it's better, but like it all comes back to my curiosity and desire to like seek the truth in terms of what's going on with someone's body, with their psyche, with their patterns and everything. So right now that's definitely at the forefront of what is extremely interesting to me, and
Mhm.
also putting a lot of time into trying to share more through social media.
Yeah.
That's still pretty new to me, and
Yeah.
I'm enjoying it, but it took me a bit to kind of get over that hump of like, okay, I just need to
You're doing a
speak.
fantastic job, man.
Thanks, man.
Seriously,
I
like,
appreciate it.
from the bottom of my heart, keep doing it,
That
because
helps to hear. Thanks.
it's very, it's been very helpful for me. So, yeah, and I think it could be helpful for a lot of people, especially in the United States,
Mm,
hundreds of millions of people,
mhm.
because we have a system that's the total opposite, in my opinion.
Sure.
Like the pharmaceuticals we talked about at CVS and
Yeah.
all these different, just living off of different pharmaceuticals is like,
Mm,
I talked to Ryan about this, on the last episode
mhm.
about how, like, it actually potentially started when the Rockefeller Foundation,
Yeah.
kind of swept away all
Mhm.
holistic practices and said, "Let's do these petrochemical,
Yeah,
solutions instead." So,
totally.
it's had major consequences on, uh, humanity in general. So,
Yeah.
River, I'm so happy that you were able to come on, and, honestly, I could probably talk for another 2 hours, but, yeah, thank you, and if you want to relay where people can find you, I'll put certain things in the show notes. I usually don't put too much,
Mhm.
I keep it kinda simple, so I'll probably put your Instagram, but if
Yeah,
you
yeah.
have other things, because I
Mhm.
know you mentioned you might start gravitating in different directions, so if you wanna mention that.
Sounds good. Yeah, Instagram is just river.rudy is my last name, Rudhe, and, considering jumping on to sharing some stuff on Twitter as
Mhm.
well.
Yeah.
But, that's it. I have a website. It's riverrudy.com, but it's, kind of actually in a little transition zone right now, so exciting things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool, man.
Yeah,
Well,
thanks for
thank you.
having me, man. I really
Appreciate it.
enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Peace out, everybody.